Relationship studies are a little tricky. I'm often skeptical of them.
Because of all the variables?
Yeah, because of all the variables, and that no two relationships are exactly alike, fortunately, and that love is a very subjective feeling. Like when I think of love, it might be different for me than how you think of your love with Mark, or how you think of your love with your friends or with your family. But with regards to relationship specifics, it's just really hard to make these generalizations around how someone physically looks and how that will carry out into their intimate relationships. Because I know that I have been with people who I have felt are like significantly more attractive than me, my current relationship including. So now we're together, so that one doesn't count. But like when I've been dumped before and like when I've gone through breakups before, I don't think that it's ever been like there's so many other butch lesbians on this campus. Like, yeah. I just want to see what my options are. Like, there have been other factors. Maybe it is. Maybe they're like, maybe one of these girls is gonna like watch this video and be like, it was totally to find other butch lesbians on the college campus.
Do you feel?
I don't know.
Whenever I talk to people about relationships, I feel like people that are in their my friends that are in their late 30s to early 40s that aren't in a relationship always feel the need to they want to be in a relationship, and I think that. And not to sound all Oprah, but I'm gonna get all Oprah. I think the universe gives you the right person at the right time in your life when it's right for you.
Timing's important.
Absolutely. If I hadn't been trolling a men's health magazine website, I would have never found Munchkin. But legit, yeah. And I was off that day, and it just, you look back on how you ended up with Lizzie or Mark, and you think, yeah. Wow. Someone, higher being or some omnipotent power had their hand in our union because everything just unfolded the way you weren't looking. It wasn't as if you were putting out this desperate, not desperate, but this needy energy.
You weren't constantly, yeah, you're right. And maybe that works for, maybe somebody was looking and found someone, but you're right. I wasn't looking when I found Mark. We literally like ran into each other.
And you shut him down.
I did, but I shut him down. I was waitressing at a bar and it's just, yeah.
Right.
But then I immediately turned around. I was like, oh, like I felt something immediately. And I wasn't looking for someone, but I felt something immediately, and we immediately like went on dates and it progressed from there. But I do think too that when with relationships, I think you're absolutely right with timing, because I can imagine if I met Mark when I was like 21, 22, I don't know if we would have lasted. Maybe
even
we would
though
have,
you're both so pretty.
It
might not have been, you know what I mean? Like you could have been really attractive and met Mark at the wrong time, and then you would have gone through one of these breakups that are apparently sweeping the nation of pretty people.
You have to be ready for commitment.
And
I think you have to be ready for commitment.
Absolutely, because if I know one of the things I ran into some relationships before Munchkin was men are more physically, our energy is more physical. Our desires are more physical. I mean, everyone's horny. Let's keep it real. But I feel like men have testosterone and have these urges to just get it on more. And one of the things one of the problems I ran into while I was dating was that it was always about sex. It was never about anything but sex. It's like, wham, bam, thank you, sir. What are we gonna do? And that wears on you after a while. You want someone who's gonna be interested in, oh, what do? Oh, you work at Pop Sugar? That's awesome. Or what's your family like? And also, I think that beauty's in the eye of the beholder. We see a lot of these. There was an article, I think, in Essence magazine about Jesse. He's on Grey's Anatomy.
Jesse Williams.
About how while he's the attractive one in the relationship.
There was an actual article about that?
They were talking about people, you can't believe who. It wasn't a magazine. It was an African American magazine talking about relationships, who's with who, and the comments were, wow, I can't believe that he's with someone who's not equally as hot as he is.
So weird.
It is very weird, but we don't know just because what's hot to one person doesn't mean it's not hot to another.
It's subjective, absolutely. And I think that's where what you stated has so much weight. There's so many factors, it's subjective. It's really hard to just go through a yearbook or go through IMDb and have a result that, I guess, like you said, it makes sense. But when you really boil it down, this feels very shallow and surface. Then you boil it down, and there's so many other factors, and it really boils down to who you are as a person.
Also, final thought. And how many times have you at face value went on a date, or you were with someone who wasn't physically attractive, but when you delved into their personality, it was like this flower that unfolded, and they become the most hottest thing on the planet.
Right, it's chemistry too.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely chemistry. It's getting to know their character. It's like a swagger, and I know that's a word from like 3 years ago. but there's scent. There's just so many other things that make somebody sexy as compared to just conventional physical attractiveness.
That fades.
Yeah, and it does fade. Yeah, you grow old with that person if that's your goal.
And we're all gonna die one day, so take us out, Sam.
Yeah, okay. All right, share your thoughts on the study in the comment section below, and we'll see you next time on Pop Trigger. Bikini baristas are stirring up quite the controversy, and it's not even that new of a concept. I mean, according to many people it is, and that's why there's a lot of opinions, especially on social media. But we have here Bikini Beans Espresso, and this is owned by a female entrepreneur, Carly Jo, and she has seen huge success. This is in Arizona. There's another one that's opening up in Washington. I've had one in a town in Watsonville, which is near Santa Cruz, that has been there for years. So I'm familiar with these bikini baristas. But we have some photos, right? And then I'll read some of the different comments. So this one is maybe the one in Arizona, it looks like. And it's a little coffee shop, but the girls are in bikinis. There they are, yep. Bikini Beans Espresso. And they have an Instagram account, they've got followers.
Nice.
Now this one they have, it looks like more pasties. I'm not sure if this is the same Bikini Beans Espresso, if maybe this is the one in Washington. But yeah, looking good, ladies, wow. And then we have the varied responses. So just to summarize, we have people saying that this is great because these women are choosing to do this, they're making money, they're having like side careers out of it. And then we have other people who are saying that it's degrading. We have the entrepreneur Carly Jo, who owns Bikini Beans Espresso. She says here about her branch in Arizona, she says, quote, "As the first bikini barista shop in Arizona, we want to empower women to be and feel good about themselves. Women everywhere have the right to vote, to be gay, to be successful community leaders and business owners, or even run for president. We have the right to work with grace, confidence, and dignity, regardless if it's in a business suit, scrubs, or a bikini." Thoughts, 5 words or less?
I was a barista once.
Good to the last drop.
The coffee is hot, hot, hot. They're hot, hot, hot.
I
Okay.
agree.
Yes.
Many questions.
Yes.
First of all, great. Happy for everyone involved. Sounds like people are happy and enjoying that. So as someone who was a barista just about a year ago, actually, and this might just be me being clumsy, but I would regularly have very hot steaming milk on me. Yeah, and so my outfit was actually pretty similar to what I'm wearing now, like black pants, black shoes, and like a gray thing, and then my little name tag. And I was regularly very grateful to have the covers, especially on like my mid area, because of all the splashing that would
So
happen.
in a functional standpoint, that's
they might just
dangerous.
Maybe, but they also could be way better baristas than I was, because I was really bad, and so they might have it more down where because I was regularly asked like, why are my clothes so dirty? And I was like, because I'm making it on the fly, like I wanted the coffee out fast.
Right. I don't think
But
anyone
that's what I
should
was
be
thinking.
shaming them. I agree with like if it comes to them being burned and stuff, hopefully they can wear like
bib.
an apron,
Oh.
something. Let's protect them. But again, this is their choice.
Say it,
They're
Sam.
choosing to do this, and if they're loving it, and then they have their little side careers with like their Instagram, and they're doing the thing, and not to liken it to Hooters, maybe so. Waitresses who also are wearing little clothing, but then they have their side careers too, right? You get that a lot with like the Hooters calendar, and so if they're happy, if they're making money, and again, if they're choosing to do this, then I don't think
And if
anybody
you-
should have an opinion on it.
If you don't
agree.
like it, then
Agree.
don't
go.
get coffee.
Oh my God, you guys are saying everything that
Okay.
I was. Yeah, yes, punch it in, ladies. Yes, boom. I freaking agree. God, I love them. Again, it's a fucking choice. People that are like, oh my God, how dare these women? Well, people need to get paid. People gotta pay rent, they have college tuition, all these things. So if they wanna go and be stark naked and serve coffee, let them. The judgment nowadays is so just ridiculous. People will find an issue with anything. People are gonna be mad that I'm wearing a Genius shirt today for whatever reason. It's like, stop the madness. These ladies look great. Now, if they're being mistreated, if they're being fondled, if they're being, as in some of these bars in Washington that came under fire for prostitution.
Really?
Yes.
Then that's a whole nother story.
Absolutely,
Okay.
Sam. But I feel like the running theme of today's Pop Trigger is choices. And if they're choosing to be there, if you don't wanna see it, like J-Lo says, don't like it, don't look at it. Don't drink coffee
And it's
there.
a body, like that is weird to me too. And because some of the comments were like, oh, I went there thinking it was a coffee shop and I had my kid with me. it's a human body.
Right.
That's natural. And when you go to the beach, you're gonna see bikinis too. I grew up in a bathing suit. I swam. So for me, it's very natural to see people in bathing suits. I think it's natural. These are our bodies. So I get that, they're gonna say, well, they're sexualized with those bikinis, but that's when you have the conversation with your child. Make that a learning opportunity. Be like, these women look beautiful. They're choosing to do this. Let's not judge. You can make anything a learning opportunity.
You're so right, Sam. There's so many worse things. And also the owner, Carly Jo, her statement is, we're empowering women. And even women, I have friends who worked at Hooters. And they enjoyed working at Hooters, and they didn't have a problem with the short shirt.
And they made good money.
Good money. And you said it too. Some of these kids some of these young adults, I'm sorry, are in college. They have to fend for themselves. Sam, you were so staunch when we did the story about the lady who took up a GoFundMe to go to college. It's like these people are taking their lives in their own hands and making a living for themselves. Who cares if they have pasties on their boobies? I do agree with you though about the hazard of splashed milk. You can have burned areolas, but right. I mean, it means I've never been a barista, but I have had hot water splashed. I mean, it's not fun. Yeah. So there's definitely an inherent danger of burning, but at the end of the day, these women look great. They're making the choice to celebrate their bodies, and if the coffee's great, boom. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I go to the one near my house. Would you go, Grace?
Yeah, I would definitely go. And I would also say that there's a Hooters in Los Angeles that has a comedy open mic.
Fun.
And
Which
one?
In
the attic on like Hollywood Boulevard. They have
the one near me.
It starts at like 1 in the morning, something like that. Yeah, and it's actually one of the most fun mics to go to. But imagine like if I was something like, I don't want to perform comedy there because women are not wearing pants, or like, I don't know. It's like, it's just like, just do you and
do you.
And if it bothers you, then don't go there. I think a lot what I'm hearing with this story is that people want there to be a scandal, and then you had the CEO come out and she was like, it's me, hi, and also women can be anything they want to these days, and if they want to work at my establishment, awesome.
And I'm going to empower them.
Preemptively looking for like, maybe she's mistreating them, maybe they're forcing people to do this.
It's human trafficking.
Maybe it will be there one day, and then I'm sure we'll talk about it. But right now, it's not there. It's just girls serving coffee in bikinis.
And from what I saw, and similar to the one near me in Watsonville, near my hometown, it's more of like you can't go in there. So the girls are too, and I think that's important, they feel protected. It's more of like a pop-up, and they have a glass window, and then so from what I saw in the pictures, it looked to be like the same one near me. Near me, that's the way it is. You can't go in there, and you're not like sitting there.
Oh, it's like a window.
Yeah, it's more like a drive-through type of a situation. And I think
that's even less of a big deal.
Yeah, then you feel a little bit more protected. You don't have like certain people that are going to sit there and just gawk.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But some people might want to get gawked at.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. True. All right. So just do you. Just do you. Share your thoughts in the comment section below, and we'll see you next time on Pop Trigger. It's time for another baby update.
Yay!
It's a bump date.
It's a what?
A bump date.
A bump date?
A baby
update. A bump date. Or did I say it right?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I didn't think it through when I said it.
Okay, Grace, but we'll run with it. Why not? Today's the start of the third trimester. So I thought today was a really good time.
It's the home stretch, right?
It's the home stretch. Third trimester already. It's crazy. 28 weeks. I'll show you the little bump.
It's
or the
not
big
little,
bump.
yeah.
No, she's.
Whoa.
You can even see the belly button. And I actually posted a photo on my Instagram today, bare belly. And I was like, should I post a bare belly photo? And I was like, fuck yeah, I should. This is such a beautiful time. And my belly looks beautiful. And to like see your body change is remarkable, because as a woman, we're pretty remarkable to produce a freaking baby in our stomach and give birth to it. So I proudly showed my belly on my Instagram today, and I don't feel bad about it.
You shouldn't feel bad about it.
No, I know.
I will never be able to give birth to anything but other stuff. So I think that, Sam, this is your journey.
Yeah.
You have so many followers and so many women that
I don't have so many followers.
Believe it or not, you do. Okay, that's a lie, because if I'm a comment reader, and people are obsessed with Sam's pregnancy. That, and you always look great. But you're so relatable, and by you going on this journey with us via social media,
it's fun.
It is very fun. Even I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool.
Informative. I'm learning while you're learning. I'm sure a lot of viewers already know because they're moms, or maybe they just understood biology more than I did.
Maybe they paid attention.
Maybe they paid attention. But I'm learning so much, and it's so fascinating to me. And then to experience it, you're like, wow, my body is fucking magic.
Okay, so now that we have established that you are beautiful and wonderful.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
Well,
Grace.
that was him. I didn't say that. I'm just regurgitating.
Good.
So don't
Keep
let
it
that
real,
go to your
Grace.
head.
Wow, Grace.
I don't follow you on anything, just so you know.
Yes, she
No,
does.
I do. I have some questions.
Yes.
So does your skin feel tight around your stomach now that it's like bigger? Like you feel like a tightness?
It itches.
Okay, so then
And you feel
remember-
a tightness and it itches.
Remember like second trimester when it was like visible that you were pregnant and I would like push on your belly and be like, does that hurt at all? And you're like, no, it just kind of feels like pressure. Would it hurt now that the skin is tighter?
No, you should feel, like you should just feel
So-
like the belly.
But if I like press in, first of all, it's really hot, Sam. Is that normal?
Yeah, we run warm.
But it feels
pregnant
like
women
I can't
run warm.
like press. Oh, I guess I can.
And she's
press
just
in a
gonna
little
get,
bit.
so right now, okay, so your uterus starts at the size of a pear and then it'll grow to a watermelon.
Damn.
So I don't know what she's at right now. Like I know that she's the size of an eggplant, they say, but I don't know my uterus.
What's the difference between the uterus and everything else?
Well, the uterus is that's what's expanding for the baby, right? So that's gonna get to like a watermelon. So I still have 2 to 3 more months, where the belly. So she's the size, just to what I get an update, every week. So she's the size of an eggplant. She's over 2 pounds. I haven't had my most recent doctor appointment. I mean, I went to my most recent doctor appointment, but this is generally speaking based on my app. Right now, today, she's around the eggplant size, over 2 pounds, almost 15 inches. So you think of the size of a ruler plus another 3 inches, that's pretty long.
A long baby.
So she must be like this inside. But right now, I mean, she just needs to quadruple her weight. So she's like a skinny baby, fully formed, probably wrinkly, and then she'll put on her weight in the next few months.
That was where I thrived when I was in the uterus. That is where I really thrived. I was about 10
in utero.
When I was in utero, I was about 10 pounds by the time of it.
Was your mom late?
Because
that could be, if she's late, then
my mom's
10
sort
pounds
of like
is normal.
not actually blacked out, but like when I ask her about like, hey mom, remember when you had me? It's like kind of all a blur. My brother got a baby book. I did not. She was like, I just did not have the time. So it's all sort of like guesswork. I was like, what was my first word? And I asked my mom like what my first word was.
What was your first word?
No, she was like, it might have been something like mom or maybe juice. I'm like, those are two different things.
I bet it was juice. I bet it was juice.
I love juice.
Juice is good.
I was already ahead of the curve of like fresh pressed, cold pressed juice.
Yes, girl.
I was like, juice, get on the juice business.
Yeah, and I don't even know if you could have a fresh pressed juice at
I love this
because it's unpasteurized.
This feminine bonding. It's very beautiful.
I know. I told
awesome.
Grace.
Do you have any questions
earlier?
We can ask
I
her
do.
anything.
Oh well,
Yeah.
I'm all for. I'm always Team Samantha Shocker. So as another gift
Team
for
Mark.
you, so you don't have stretch marks afterwards. Angie Everhart says Palmer's cocoa butter.
Oh yeah, I've been
oil.
using Palmer's.
Boom.
Yes, I've been using Palmer's. And if it happens, it happens. That's a beautiful part of pregnancy. Your body's gonna change.
No, we're not.
But if you want to minimize it, yeah. But if you want to minimize them, which I do, I use the Palmer's cocoa butter, and then I mix that. Clarins has an oil.
She said Clarins.
Is it?
No, you're right. But I'm saying like
I know how
people
to really
say, oh, I mix baby oil. She's like, I miss La Mer
I
oil.
wish. But Clarins, the reason why I got Clarins, and it's a French company, so
Yeah,
what is
Clarins
it really?
is great. No, they're awesome.
I don't know how.
Okay, so Clarins is like, they have a pure oil. When I researched like great way to prevent stretch marks, that popped up more than the cocoa butter. I combine them and it's like a pure rich oil. So I put that, I slather that out a couple times a day. Yes.
I have a question. It's a little personal. Can you, if you wanted to, have sex when you're in your 3rd trimester?
Yeah, you can. In fact, because you have so much blood flow and all your hormones are amplified, your climax is like
Awesome.
like
But is it
very
like
Twilight-esque. It's very
Twilight.
like, meaning they say vampire sex is the best sex.
I thought you
Pregnant
meant
sex
the
is
Twilight
the best
Zone.
I
sex.
have friends who say. I have friends who said that pregnant sex is amazing.
I mean, everything's heightened because of like the blood flow and all of that. So yes, you can if your doctor tells you you can't. So it's really healthy. I remember when I first was pregnant, I was even scared. Like, could sex be bad? Like I knew nothing, and it's 100% safe and okay. I know towards the end of the third trimester, it might induce labor, but maybe that's a good thing. Let's say you're late. So just talk to your doctor. For those out there, yes, it's 100% okay, but if your doctor says there may be a complication because of A, B, C, D, and E, then listen to your doctor. But generally speaking, it's 100% safe and okay and great.
Do you want more kids, Sam, after Sophie? Like,
Yes.
How many kids do you want?
I think, well, I've always envisioned 2. If I had more, that's awesome, but I envisioned 2. I even said to Grace earlier that I hope my second is when Lizzie has her first, so we can go through it together, because it's so cool, and just, it's so cool. Like even just, I feel her a lot now, so she kicks constantly, and you can even see my belly move, and my husband can finally like see his daughter like in my tummy. And
Mark, let's talk about Mark.
I was actually, I had a lot of
Mark
questions
has been
about Mark.
amazing. My husband has been so amazing, and he has apps that tell him, like his are more daddy oriented. So maybe those are the ones you should look at, because they teach you how to be supportive.
Yeah.
You're not going to be going through what Lizzie's going through, but it'll tell you what she's going through so you can relate, but then it'll give you tips on how to alleviate like her back pain, how to like, you know.
Yeah, well, this is something that we were talking about, which by the way, you guys should know, I'm just dating Lizzie. So like we're just getting excited because Sam's pregnant.
Not?
Like it's not like on the horizon anytime soon. But we were talking like if and when she is fortunate to be pregnant one day and I'm in the picture, like what sort of a book would I
There's a ton.
have? Like
There's a ton.
Because here's the thing. Also, is that I am a girl, but that's like not like I also am a little bit more gray gender, which means that like I just don't really care about my gender at all, and like I don't really feel comfortable with things that when people are like you're a strong woman, I'm like allegedly. Anyway, so. I don't know if I'd be more comfortable with like a dad book. I know a mom book wouldn't be for me, but I also don't think I would really want something where it's just like general vague parenting book. Like I think I would want something more specific, and I wonder if maybe you guys can let us know if there are those sorts of options.
Great question,
because
Grace.
I think like probably the dad stuff would make more sense for me.
But they are very specific. There are some books that are more general, but then there's ones that are definitely, the ones that I've gravitated towards might be like all about midwifery, midwives. So I want to learn about that and what my options are there. Some of them will be like all about a diet and organic. Some of them may be about just baby furniture. And some of them might just have chapters on those. So I've gravitated towards ones that will really dive into like a niche. And then I'll read one about something else and then one about something else. So I've read a ton of different specific books, and that's helped me.
Right.
Mark's books have been pretty general, but then his apps that give him tips daily, he says has been more informative and helpful than sometimes the books, because every day it gives him a little bit more of a tidbit and what he can do and what I'm going through. Like he'll say, you know, she might be more, it'll talk about how hungry I get. And that if I lose my temper, like don't take it personally. Like she literally can go from 0 to 100 when she's hungry. And I've learned how to manage that. But in the beginning I didn't. I remember being in the car and I almost freaked out. I was like, we need to find food now. And now I always have snacks in my car. But you like your hangry levels through the roof. And then it talks about like what the baby, like he wrote me earlier, the baby, you know, it said that Sophie now has billions of neurons. And that's so cool to think like her brain has billions of neurons. I remember when
that's insane.
Insane. And now she has eyelashes, and now her eyes are open, and those
her
are things.
Eyes are open?
Her eyes are open.
Underwater?
Her
Doesn't
eyes
it
are
hurt?
maybe
It's
she closes
magical.
them, but
It's
she can
magical in there. They
open
can
her
see
eyes.
underwater.
She's practicing crying and breathing through the water and the amniotic fluid.
She's crying in there?
Well, no, they if you were to, the way they describe it, I'm not a doctor, no, but the way they describe it, if you were to look at like an ultrasound right now or a sonogram, you'll see them making those faces, and that's their main communication tool. So they need to be practicing, right? So she's practicing whether or not something's coming out or not. She's practicing that because that will be her main form of communication.
Question.
Yeah.
I was reading an article about Chrissy Teigen and postpartum.
Oh, that was such a great article.
It was a great article. Yourself, when you talk to your doctors, are they talking to you about postpartum, the possibility of it, and how to, and like, is there anything you can do to possibly prevent it while you're still pregnant?
It's interesting. I was just researching it because of the Chrissy Teigen article, and I'm so glad that she brought that to the forefront, because I know a lot of women personally that have gone through it. It's devastating, and then they have the guilt factor on top of that, because you think you're supposed to be this like incredible mom that's so in love with your child, and you are, but you're also going through something pretty gnarly, and then you feel guilty for like admitting that. So I know that towards the end of my pregnancy, that's a big part of my OB-GYN and I will talk about. And I ended up deciding to stay with my OB-GYN because I also toured birthing centers, and that would have been, I give birth with a midwife, and there's pros and cons to both. I loved my OB-GYN so much that I want to stay with her, and she has midwifery experience. And Cedars-Sinai now, the hospital, they have this new, and I'll get to that question, sorry, but this all correlates. But Cedars-Sinai in the past had a higher cesarean rate, which scared me. You know, why is your cesarean rate so high? Is there too much intervention? Are you not informing and empowering the women to make their own choices? And but now they have this new policy that they have called rock and roll, where it really empowers the women to move more, to squat when she gives birth, even if she's on an epidural. They have midwives now that rotate with the doctor that will help get you in a position. So they have aromatherapy. They have so many different options that they've adopted from midwifery, which I think is so awesome because it's lowered their cesarean rate to like 18%.
Wow.
So that made me feel like, okay, I'm getting the best of both worlds. Now, if I went to a different hospital that didn't adopt all that and I was like stuck on my back, I may have thought to give birth with a midwife like at a birthing center. But so my OB-GYN, who I love at Cedars, those are some of the things that we're gonna talk about closer to the end of my pregnancy. And she said too, there's a number of things. For one, I guess if you have low iron, and you're used to being anemic, then for some reason, I'm not a doctor at all, I'm just regurgitating what I hear, that could play into it. Also, if you have a history of depression, also there's things that you can do that don't have real science behind it, like having the placenta pills, but a lot of women swear that it works for them, so I'm gonna try it. Again, just because it doesn't have data, it doesn't matter. It's a couple $100. You give your placenta to like this company that makes it into a pill, and then you take it, and if that can help me, then I'm gonna try it because it's scary, you know? I've dealt with depression in the past, I've dealt with anxiety in the past, and if I end up having it, I'll deal with it. But I wanna do everything that I can to hopefully prevent it. And if that means the placenta pills or something else that I may learn. I'm meeting with a doula today, she was on our show, Ivy. I'm meeting with Ivy today, and Ivy, I'm sure, will give me a wealth of information. And I'm sure when I talk to my OB-GYN, she'll give me a wealth of information, but they do talk about that, and they should. And that's awesome, and I'm glad that they talk about it because that's only gonna well equip the mother to handle it better when and if it does come about.
I can also give you a wealth of bad information. Like if you ever want to just balance that out, being like, oh, like this sounds really good and sound, then you can come to me and I can be like, I heard that you should deliver while you're running.
Hey, at least you're upright. My biggest fear has always been being on my back.
Kind of like squeezing out a fart like while you're running.
Yeah, no.
Sam,
I don't know. It's a wealth of bad information.
Yeah.
Living in Los Angeles, I mean, you're such a busy woman, and you have this career, and you have this business.
What do you do?
And you are busy. Has there ever been a time during your pregnancy where you're in your car or you wake up in the middle of the night and you're panicked and you just are freaked out?
Yeah.
That like and how do you handle that?
Yeah, I've been relatively actually really calm. The first trimester was a little overwhelming. I wanted to make sure that I did everything right, and I was, and then I was so tired and so sick that it was hard to like manage work and being pregnant, and I was afraid I wasn't gonna get work because people would be like, oh, she's pregnant, why invest in her right now? And that sucks. And really what happened is I've had more work than I've ever had. So it's great that hasn't come into play. And I know it does for certain women. Some people are discriminated against because they're pregnant, and that sucks. And maybe I have been without me even knowing it. Who knows? Maybe my agent's been submitting me and they're like, yeah, no. But I think we can do it all. And I hope that I can do it all. And at the same time, there are those days where you crash. So that's my body telling me stop. Like you're doing too much. And then there's moments where I have my mini freakouts where I just hope that I'm gonna be a good mom. I hope that I don't do anything bad. I hope that I
You're gonna be
well
a great
informed.
mother. You are going to be a great mom.
For sure.
When you have those thoughts, call anyone in your life. There are so many people that love you that will, it's normal to freak out.
Yeah.
If you
I just wanna make sure I'm gonna start taking parenting classes. Like when I know I'm gonna give everything to my daughter. I know I'm a great mom in that sense. I'm gonna sacrifice everything and I can't imagine doing anything less. But it's like, what if I don't swaddle right? What if I don't? And I know I'm gonna learn all those things, but what if I'm not
if you were
breastfeeding
a bad
right?
mom, you wouldn't be worried about it. If you're a bad mom, you're like, she's gonna pop out probably on a run like a fart, and then I'm gonna nail it. And then I'm just gonna be an awesome mom, done and done.
There's so much to learn though.
You're gonna do it though, because you are you. Like, remember that.
Thank you.
And also, like, you and Mark, you're just gonna be great parents.
Thank you.
You have it.
We have a lot to learn. I want to ask the viewers, like, if for those that have been pregnant, what their nesting energy was like, because that's what gave me my cold. I had a head cold like a week ago, and it wasn't bad at all. Like, I felt good, but your colds linger for so much longer because your immune system is way down. I was like, why is your immune system down? You'd think it would be like up with like the prenatals and all the stuff that I'm taking and being like aware of my health, but it's because if your immune system was really strong, you would attack the baby because it's foreign. So your immune system has to go down. Crazy, right? But that's not the thing. But nesting energy is the real deal. And I know I talked about this on the last update, but my nesting energy has gotten even stronger. And you want to clean, organize, move things. You shouldn't be moving things. Like, you want to do, you can't shut it off. And that's what's been impacting my sleep. And that's why I'm running around like a crazy person, is because of my nesting energy. And I think that led me to get a head cold. It led me to get sick, and that's not good. I need to manage my nesting energy. But I've redone my entire place, you guys, minus the baby room, because I have a YouTube channel, Awestruck, that's gonna redo it for me.
That's hot.
Keep you posted on that. Thank God, because it's a lot. I've redone like paint. I didn't paint, even though I got 0 VOC paint. I had someone else paint to be safe, but everything from like painting to like artwork to, and I don't even have the money right now, to plants, to new rugs, to new couch, to new mattress. It's insane. You want to like purge the old to welcome the new. And I've never felt this way in my life, because I'm not that type of type A personality. I just more easygoing. I keep a clean house, but not to this degree. So I'm wondering what you guys went through, because it's crack energy. It's crack energy. Like, my house is spotless and it's a brand new house. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
It's crazy.
I would just love to see your version of like The Purge Birth Edition.
Oh my God, my husband's like, this is insane, Sam. Like 3 weeks ago, when I was like at the peak of it all, like literally like hammering, and like my husband's like, sit down. Like, this is insane. Like, this is insane, Sam. And I'm like, I know. And then I called
like, isn't it great?
And I called my sister. She's like, don't worry, I went through that too. She's like, I got new curtains. I'm like, me too. And she was like, I got new rugs. I was like, me too.
I got a new husband. That's gonna come.
It's crazy.
I ordered him on Amazon.
Because a lot of the things you can't do on your own. I can't move all this stuff. So my poor husband, I'm like, Mark. And then 2 minutes later, I'm like, Mark, will you hang this picture? And then 2 minutes later, Mark, will you move this big tree? And then 2 minutes later, Mark, will you move the couch over here? Like,
Mark, will you move out?
Oh my God, it's psycho. So yeah, I want to know people's nesting stories, because that's probably been the most like bewildering to me, that we go through that, like a bird, like with their you see the birds going back and forth, twigs in their mouth. Like, that looks exhausting. It's the same goddamn thing.
Right.
Bizarre. Anyways, but other than that, I feel good. I'm a little achy, but I'm feeling really good. So, okay. Grace is laughing at me. It's exciting.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I guess the next pregnancy update will be like in a month, so like 32 weeks, and then probably one more.
I think we should do a Pop Sugar reality, like in the delivery room. Like, that'd be dope.
No.
Let's call it Full Frontal.
I want it
Samantha Shocker.
private. We've been debating, like, when do we have our family come in? So I just want to like bond with Mark and the baby.
Yeah.
And everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm sure some people love when their family rush in right after. I don't know, that's something Mark and I have to discuss.
I had a friend who gave birth, and I know we gotta wrap up, and they say that when after the baby is born, you automatically
skin to skin.
Skin to skin, and he didn't let anyone in his family hold the baby for like at least 2 weeks.
And that's okay, that's his prerogs.
Yeah.
I gotta still look at the pros and cons, and I know that obviously Mark and I will do skin to skin. And then I know like the lactation nurse comes in and teaches you like making sure that the baby latches. It's bizarre, isn't it bizarre?
Yeah, God.
I guess, I don't have to worry about pumping for a while. I guess like the first 4 to 6 weeks, it's just the baby's nursing.
Steady
and
flow.
then at some point, since I'm gonna want Mark to bottle feed if I'm like late or whatever, like coming home, I'll pump. So I gotta learn how to pump too. I was watching my sister all weekend. It's bizarre. It's crazy.
Life.
Oh my gosh, it's so weird. I just want to be in the mix of it. I just want to I don't want to be overwhelmed. I want to know how to pump. I want to know how to breastfeed. I want to know how to swaddle. Yeah, so, okay. Anyways, please share your thoughts and we'll have the next one in like a month.
Thoughts, kind thoughts.
Yeah.
They better be kind thoughts, yo.
Yeah,
and
guys.
they have been. The baby updates,
Good.
I've been
Right.
really, really so grateful for all of your supportive comments and questions, and I read them all, especially the baby updates. I'm obsessed to hear what you have to say because a lot of the mommies out there have shared their experience, and I'm learning from you guys. So please continue to share what you can give me. And then I'm gonna have a pregnancy blog out. It's a little late. I was hoping to launch it a couple months ago, but I've been plugging away on it.
It's awesome.
It's a cute little pregnancy blog, and it features other moms, which I think is really cool. So it's
Great.
about empowering you. Okay, and we'll see you next time on Pop Trigger.
You may have noticed the Deadpool spiel at the beginning of Logan, if you've seen it in theaters, and there's a special text at the end, but what does it mean? Ryan Reynolds uploaded it online. And I do have the text here. It's about 700 words long.
it's
I'm
a
not
very
going
long
to read it
text.
all to you. The Old Man in the Sea is the story of a fight between an elderly accomplished fisherman, Santiago, and a really big fish, like huge. The story opens with Santiago suffering 84 days without catching a fish because he's the unluckiest son of a bitch on planet Earth. Honestly, if you were in a boat for 84 days, jeez, it'd be hard to not catch a fish, even by accident. Santiago was so unlucky that his apprentice Manolin was forbidden by his mon pa to fish with him, but as the Fresh Prince used to say, parents just don't understand. So the boys visit Santiago's shack anyway. And it goes on like that. But basically what it is, it's a retelling of The Old Man in the Sea, but as Deadpool would say it. So he mentions things about shark dicks, being unlucky, having the curse of life, skeleton, dream killer.
Yeah.
And there's 3 different theories about what this could mean. One is that this directly ties to Logan, who you can see some parallels in there about an older man going on some kind of mission and finding meaning in it. There's also an idea that this could reflect what is happening in Deadpool 2, perhaps between Deadpool and Cable. And the third theory is it's just there for no damn reason because Deadpool, it'd be funny if he wrote an essay, wouldn't it, for school or something? I don't even know. This comes at the end of him, well, he's failed a mission and he's lying on a dead guy eating his Cherry Garcia Ben and Jerry's ice cream. And I'm not really sure where to go with this. What do you think it means?
Well, I'm like, most of what I do is analyze films and like look at things in which, I'm just kind of let my brain go on these things. So for me, I went levels deep on this and I thought it was more like a bit of a thumbing his nose at people about Ryan Reynolds' career. Because Ryan Reynolds has been doing this for such a long time and people had always thought he was gonna break through and be this star since Van Wilder and he couldn't quite get it
Really?
going.
I think he is a star.
Well, people know his name, but his film, if you look at his films haven't really sold or been great until
R.I.P.D. Come on now.
All right, yeah, right, exactly. R.I.P.D. Until like Deadpool. And Deadpool to me is like his fish. That he's finally brought this fish in and everyone was, taking pieces of it, which could allude to his battles with Tim Miller through the filming of Deadpool and with the studio and then getting this out. And then him bringing that fish to shore and then the critics finally liking something that he did, like super liking something he did, which is the guy measuring it and him getting credit for. So once again, this is completely ridiculous. But in my mind, this is where I went and this is what I thought and this could be some kind of allegory in his way. Because Ryan seems to be the one who's now the creative driving force behind this Deadpool 2.
Well, Tim Miller's out.
Right, after Tim is out, Junkie XL is left. And so it seems like everything is kind of running through Ryan. And so I feel like this would be kind of his way of real subtly thumbing his nose at everyone about his career and like, yeah, I told you I could do it. I told you I could do it.
A 4th theory. And you know what? It holds water because because it does sort of break the 4th wall, getting real meta about who is Deadpool or who is behind Deadpool.
Yeah.
And it could be him. I mean, gosh, that makes sense. What else has Ryan Reynolds done that we think of as his greatest work?
Van Wilder. Really, I mean,
don't like Van Wilder.
yeah, but that's like a lot of people, that's what he got known for is that film. And then of course, me personally, I love Just Friends. That's one of my favorite favorite films.
Like, that's a guilty pleasure
Yes,
movie.
a guilty pleasure
because
movie.
it's really bad.
Yeah, right. But in a good way.
I know what you mean. I
Yeah.
watched it because I think Anna Faris is really funny.
Yeah, she's
in
great
that role
in it. Yeah.
as this idiot pop star.
Yeah.
But there's some really weird performances in that movie.
There are from
like
a lot
the
from a number of
brother.
people. Yeah.
What is he even doing?
I always get him confused with Miles Teller, the brother. It's not Miles Teller, but I always
don't
get him
know who the
confused
kid
'cause
is,
he looks like
actually.
him, yeah.
Check it out on Netflix, I think. It's a movie in which Ryan Reynolds wears a fat suit and then he becomes a thin jerk.
The other reason is because, like in the Deadpool 2 thing that was before Logan, Stan Lee goes, "Aren't you Ryan Gosling?" And he says, "Shut up, Stan Lee." And so there's that kind of, or what is, yeah, I think he said Ryan Reynolds rather, and I think that's a thing that like kind of gets mixed up in there. So it's a way of being meta even more. You know,
Like
so.
in the beginning when the People's Sexiest Men issue comes out,
Yeah.
there's a picture of Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny that this is considered his like oof when he's looking the ugliest he's ever looked.
Well, sometimes.
Let's
hey,
be real.
It worked for Charlize.
I
Get
guess.
that Oscar for Monster. You know,
Yeah,
so
just
it's
take
certainly
away
possible.
your beautiful movie star looks, and we all relate. Us uggos relate to you more. That's the secret. Audience, what do you think the ending means? This whole block of text, you can check out the whole thing via a link below. I will tell you though, it is literally just like a book report written by Deadpool. I'm starting to lean toward your way now.
Really? Okay.
Or perhaps Logan. That's my
Yeah.
second choice.
Yeah.
I don't think this will be Deadpool Cable, and I don't think it was for no reason. Oh, what if? Okay, okay, audience, what do you think? Help us decide which one it could possibly be. Maybe a combo even. Please write that down in the comments, and please like and subscribe to this channel for more. There's an unusual way to treat burn victims, and it's a lot more cheap than you would think. So this in certain areas in Brazil, burn victims might not have access to human donated skin or even some forms of animal skin. So a certain other solution was come up with, especially by some of the places where the world's tilapia gets farmed, and that is to use the fish skin on the burn victims, whatever has been burned, be it second or even third degree. Let's take a look.
Tá doendo? A pele da tilápia, ela adere na ferida e faz um efeito que a gente chama de efeito tampão. Ela bloqueia a contaminação de fora para dentro da ferida, ela bloqueia a perda de líquidos e proteína pela ferida e ela fica realmente aderida nesse leito da ferida até o processo de cicatrização.
So due to, yeah, that almost looks like Aquaman or
Yeah.
a merman.
Right?
But it's sterilized tilapia skin, and the collagen and other properties of the skin actually make the process a lot less painful than gauze and cream, which need to be changed frequently and hurts a lot when taken off. It's kind of a cool solution to this. So it probably will not happen in the US at any time, but it is a great alternative for any areas that don't have human donated skin or access to certain animal skins, which are used in the process.
This is intense stuff. Like we see natural remedies like this happening more and more as kind of a retort to the high-end healthcare costs for medicines, what have you. People are going back to like old school methods, old school techniques of, me being Latino, like my mom from Bolivia has like her idea of how to cure certain things, and it goes way back to plants and goes back to roots, goes back to all these things from nature. So it's not surprising that something like tilapia could be used, and I think it's a great, it's really intelligent of this plastic surgeon to come up with this idea and explore this idea and see what could happen. And you know, for people who are wondering, they do remove the smell of the fish, they sterilize it. You know, it goes through this whole process. So they don't just cut it off the fish and put it on you. There's a whole process, yeah, that goes on with this thing, like weeks of a process, and then it's frozen, then it's flown in, and then it's attached. And apparently, it can stay on for like 2 weeks long.
Yeah,
Instead of having to rip bandages off every day, this stays on for a long time. So I think it's fantastic.
Well, if it's a second degree burn, the skin just stays on until the person scars naturally.
right.
If it's third, it will be changed over a couple weeks of treatment. But it does seem to be a far less painful and is able to keep in moisture under the skin until that skin is able to repair itself. So it's a cool alternative for now. It doesn't It looks like what they're trying to do is to conduct studies and work on the comparative cost, because as John said, it's not necessarily just fresh fish. It's treated, it's sterilized, and using collagen proteins and other qualities of the skin itself to help human skin. They are hoping to do a process to process the skins on an industrial scale and sell it to the public health system. After that, I just think it's kind of an ingenious method, especially, Brazil is in particular low on human skin reserves. I know that sounds really gross, but it's an important part of dealing with burns, second and third degree burns, and it's working with that in a way that makes sense. I just think it's ingenious, and I love that they've done this. It also looks kind of badass.
It looks kind of cool, yeah, exactly. And they said it's very similar to human skin with the flexibility and the movement. And the thing is, when we see this, when they attach limbs and after limbs have been cut off or lost in battle, like they attach these. The technology keeps increasing every year about how much more similar to an actual limb they're trying to get with these attachments. So it's no surprising that something like tilapia is being used so they can almost simulate human skin, because I'm sure mentally it helps the victim as well, seeing, moving and feeling something like skin on their arm or on their body of wherever they're burnt, and so that mentally they heal, they feel better, and they heal quicker. The power of the mind has been documented many times, helping with a lot of healing situations.
I wonder if it's a shock for people to look down and see what looks to be a fish scale coating them, but then also, I'm speaking from the outside. I think it looks cool, but I'm talking from someone who likes to look at cosplay and stuff like that. Would you ever opt for tilapia skin if human skin grafts were not available? Let us know what you think below in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more. The TSA is not allowed to collect your passwords for your electronic devices. However, Border Patrol exists in sort of a gray area and may be allowed to do so. Yeah, it's not exactly protected by the 4th and 5th Amendments, which would protect your protection from unreasonable searches, as well as your self-incrimination, so to speak. And it's a little bit worrisome. You may remember last month when NASA JPL employee Sid Bicanaver was detained upon his return from his vacation in Chile, and he was strong-armed into turning over his phone's password. That phone did belong to JPL. And it's a little bit worrisome. You may think, oh, well, I would just change my password later, or I would just change my PIN later. And you could, however, a lot of times people aren't necessarily thinking about these things, especially in stressful situations where they can be detained, handcuffed, otherwise put into some level of being frightened or discomforted. And you can also be, it is possible to transfer these PINs and passwords to other sites. For instance, is your 4-digit PIN for your iPhone, is it the same as your ATM PIN? That's something to think about on top of many other concerns.
Yeah, it's unnerving that they can do this and hold it, according to what we read, up to 75 years.
Yes, according to NextGov, a Customs and Border Protection spokesperson told them that the data can be in the system for upward of 75 years or the duration of a law enforcement matter or any other enforcement activities that may become related. And also, you may trust this agency with your passwords. What if one negligent person leaves it open for someone else to collect? Then what?
Yeah, and this is something we talked about last time I was on here with Best Buy, how they were, the CIA, I guess, or FBI was hiring people on the Geek Squad to go into people's computers, and they were paying them and search them.
Negligible space for images.
For any kind of images or any kind of information that could lead them to find something about them. And this is the same thing. Some people coming across the border may not know that they can do this. Like, a lot of people are not as technology proficient or savvy as most people are.
I think you can be easily intimidated into doing this.
Of course. I mean, handcuffs tough. If they can handcuff you and mentally intimidate you, and if you go on the Border Patrol website, it is a bit unsettling. They're like super happy that Trump won and became president. And one of their quotes, I know I have it here, is they said that they're happy that they'll be able to enforce their rules. They very well could, and on these people who are coming across the border, because they see it as these immigrants. They very well could be immigrants looking for a better life in America, or they could be radicalized terrorists seeking to harm America. So it's always that's underneath this, these violations at times of our civil liberties to have these kinds of access to our personal stuff. And it's a bit unsettling that they frame it in this way constantly. This like, I don't know how many Mexican terrorists, but I haven't met many Mexican terrorists coming across the border.
I don't know. I heard some of them are bad hombres.
Yeah, bad hombres, exactly. This kind of stuff is just madness to me. You want to do something? Go find these crazy white kids who are blowing stuff up. That's where you need to be searching passwords or finding these kinds of things. You know, that's the unsettling thing about it if you look at the statistics. So to me, when you're looking at something like this, people coming across the border most of the time are trying to just find a better life, you know, and trying to build a better life. I get that we need to be vigilant, absolutely be secure of our borders, but there's also a thing about sacrificing our principles as a country. And this is what concerns me. What are we pledging to if we might as well just say at the end of Pledge of Allegiance, unless we feel threatened or terrified, then we can change all our principles and violate our codes, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of gray area, which is the root of this is a gray area in the 4th and 5th Amendment protections regarding CBP agents. And it's possible that certain agents may just choose to, use whatever information that they want to use. Or if they find a certain person attractive, or if they want to shame someone. For instance, there's a Canadian man who didn't want to give his name, I'll include a link below though, who was being shamed and being forced to open all of his same-sex dating apps and sites. And there was no reason in there that this would contribute to protecting people or helping people. This was just to shame him, and it was unfortunate, and it was cruel and unnecessary. I do agree with you, though. I mean, it seems a lot of the time that we, in the course of trying to prevent catastrophe, we cause more catastrophe. And it's smaller issues or seemingly smaller issues that people sometimes get ignored, or their plight is ignored when we look at this in the big picture. And it's not right, and it doesn't seem like it should be lawful. But if you bend the laws, what can you do?
Yeah, and I don't want to vilify, obviously, everyone, but there are bad eggs in everything. We just see that news that came out, I think, yesterday about these Marines taking pictures of the female Marines naked and sharing them on Facebook. Like these kinds of things, or sharing them on the private Facebook groups. These are things that happen, unfortunately. There are bad eggs in every situation. So if you arm these bad eggs and you protect these bad eggs, like this article says that they've been like protecting people who have had numerous accusations of harassment, numerous accusations of violating, their principles and their ethics as a border agent. This is dangerous stuff to be handing your information to some of these bad eggs and have them use it for God knows what, as you said, for nefarious purposes, possibly.
Possibly, or for entertainment.
Yeah,
I mean, sometimes we forget people are people, and that's not an excuse, but sometimes bad things do happen, or sometimes people do bad things, and it's not my duty to trust people with this information if it's not my legal and lawful obligation to do so. So it's worrisome. You can, again, like I said, TSA does not have this right, but CBP agents may kind of have this right. It's in a gray area, and it's something certainly worrisome. Audience, what would you do if you were pressured to give up your password? Would you deal with the interrogation and possible handcuffing, or would you just hand it over and hope you can remember to change everything later? Which is the right thing to do? Let us know what you think below in the comments. Please like and subscribe for more. Do ghosts exist? One physicist says that science has disproved the existence of ghosts. So don't be afraid of them. Be afraid of your own mind. That is editorial. Brian Cox is a renowned physicist and science communicator, and he believes that the Large Hadron Collider has proved that there is no such thing as ghost. So the LHC, you may remember when we were talking about the Higgs boson, when that was part of this
particle,
great discovery in the news. It's a massive particle accelerator slamming energy beams at each other from miles away. It's about 16 miles all around. It's amazing, and it's able to detect and speed up it speeds up particles, collides them, and records even the smallest bursts or disturbances or whatever remarkable thing may happen. And in short, I mean, well, here's what he said. If we want some sort of pattern that carries information about our living cells to persist, then we must specify precisely what medium carries that pattern and how it interacts with the matter particles out of which our bodies are made. We must, in other words, invent an extension of the standard model of particle physics that has escaped detection at the Large Hadron Collider. That's almost inconceivable at the energy scales typical of the particle interaction in our bodies. So that is science for what Neil deGrasse Tyson later translated for us as saying, if I understand what you just declared, you just asserted that CERN disproved the existence of ghosts. Cox then replied with a simple, yes. So thank you, Neil, for translating for the rest of us here. Basically what it says is that this would be able to detect any kind of particle disturbance that is possible, no matter how minute. But it hasn't detected anything that might be correlated to the existence of the spirit world.
Sure.
The ghosts.
Yeah.
Whatever you would assume or describe this as.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
No.
Oh.
To me, it doesn't. It's science. I mean, how is science? If you science, then the next step is proving God, proving, religion. Listen, the whole idea is science, in a way, is supposed to, kind of follow facts, follow what's in front of them. But something like ghosts, I don't think you can explain. You know, I mean, they can't explain dark matter and dark energy, and ghosts could be existing in dark matter and dark energy.
Space
who can
ghosts?
say? Sure. I like that show. That was a good show. Space Ghost.
Well, I think what he's saying is that if it can detect any amount of energy and there isn't this unaccountable spirit energy, then that would be enough. But then we have to, I don't think the onus should be on disproving the existence of ghosts. The onus should be on proving the existence of ghosts. And then we have this ultimate argument of, skeptics versus believers against each other. Right. And then we have what people would accept as evidence and what people would not accept as evidence. For instance, someone might have anecdotal evidence of, I saw a ghost after my aunt died and it acted like my aunt. Or someone else like Mr. Cox here might say, well, it was never detected. Its energy was never detected. So I don't know what you would be thinking this is. Right. It's hard to say based on this massive diversity of evidence. I mean, I'm personally a skeptic, but I will leave my mind open.
Wow, I am not. I have many friends who've seen ghosts. I have had interactions myself a couple of times with something that felt otherworldly.
In the past, I've been an asshole about this, but I'm going to keep an open mind.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I'm trying to be more open to other people's experiences and thoughts and not be...
You ridiculed people for believing in ghosts?
I don't think it's possible personally.
Wow. But how many things exist in this world that are unexplainable?
I think there's a lot of things that haven't been explained yet, and I think that's what science is out to do. Like you said earlier, like how not understanding black matter all the way or black holes all the way. It's more of a journey and a process than a definition, I would say, or a definitive answer, at least for now.
Yeah, but science can't prove a negative. Like they can't prove God. And so it's like that to me means the option of ghosts remains open, the possibility, because all they tested was in this 16-mile area.
Yeah, it's a big area though.
Yeah, but they didn't go into an area that was possibly haunted to see what might be there.
It's underground.
Yeah, but like I said,
where would ghosts be buried?
Ghosts aren't buried. Bodies are buried.
Where would the ghost juice seep out of? Answer me that.
But for him to prove that there are no ghosts, again, he wasn't setting out to prove that there are no ghosts. Neil said that, but like if he was going to own up to it.
He was trying to explain what because that's a heavy amount of understanding of quantum and theoretical sciences. And it's just like, to a lot of lay people, myself included, it's not incredibly easy to discern. So I think Neil just like went, well, is that what you're saying? And he did say, yeah.
But if science can't prove a negative, then what he's doing in essence is unscientific by proving the negative of ghosts existing.
Maybe what you could
Just
say
saying.
about this is that there's no conclusive evidence that there are ghosts.
That's fair.
Judging
Absolutely
from
fair.
this very, very precise.
I feel like you're pushing the.
I'm trying hard not to be. I'm trying to be open-minded.
Oh my God, you can be an asshole to me about it if you want.
I
don't
really
have a
don't
problem with
believe
it.
in ghosts.
Okay,
I don't.
that's
and
fair.
I think there are a lot of natural occurrences, explained and unexplained, that can account for it.
Okay.
However, if you believe in ghosts, that's fine.
Right.
That's how I feel.
That's a fair question. That's absolutely right. And if you don't believe in ghosts, that's also fine.
Sure.
That is not a problem. Did you feel, okay, I don't want to ask you about your religious beliefs, so I'll leave it at that.
You can.
Yeah?
I'm not religious.
There we go.
There you
so
go.
Those are extension. I think if you believe in God, you can believe in ghosts. You believe in spirits. You believe in spirit world. Those kinds of things. I think it's, or any kind of God, right? It doesn't have to be any kind of Catholic or Christian, anything. I think you have a natural proclivity to believe in the possibility of those kinds of things, because we have such a human desire to connect. When it is removed, we can fool ourselves into creating things that aren't there. But at times, but there are also some unexplainable phenomena that have occurred and has been documented with scientific equipment. They have caught certain things, and so it's just interesting.
Well, we could talk about the validity of certain studies.
Yes, I'm sure we could.
But I mean, it's just going to go on forever, as it has been going on forever, or not for a very long time,
Yes.
at least. So I'm going to ask the audience a question. Do you believe in ghosts? No, I mean, is it possible to prove or disprove the existence of ghosts? I'm not sure it is. I think it's just always going to be a debate and quantifying evidence versus evidence. Let me know what you think below in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more. There's an optical illusion that I want you to look at. It's a picture of strawberries, and you may think the strawberries are red, but the whole picture is just blues and blacks. Let's take a look. So, wow, I am seeing the red hardcore in this. But actually what I did is I took this image onto my computer and I zoomed in and I zoomed and I zoomed in. And it's, believe it or not, it's all blue and black dots. That's all it is. It's just pixels together, and there's nothing red in this photo, which is something crazy. This was taken by Akiyoshi Kitaoka, and I want you to do the same thing. I want you to zoom in and look at the tiny pieces of this photo, because there's no red in it.
Yeah.
And this is not the same as the dress saga, the blue and black / gold and white dress.
All right.
Kinda though.
It feels similar,
It's similar, it's similar, because it's working off the same mechanism. So what happens is there's a little bit of white space in between each of these blue and black pixels, and our brains complete them the way that we would like to, or the way that we are used to seeing them. For instance, we know strawberries are red. This would also work if it was pictures of bricks or red apples or other things that our brains know to be red, filling it in. It's kind of amazing to be tricked by your own brain so quickly and so easily.
Yeah.
But it's a smart thing and it's a not smart thing, because your brain is using its collected wisdom in order to interpret something that might otherwise not be interpretable.
Yeah, well, they call it color constancy, I think is what the term for it is. And that's what's so interesting to see how they put this thing together and use certain colors to convey that you wouldn't normally think would work, And you're right, our brains are already, we just have to accept certain truths. We look, okay, that is strawberries. Definitely, when I see strawberries, I see red. There's just a correlation to that. I wonder if they'd use grapes, if they'd be red or if they'd be green. What would be your initial response? What would be your initial thought?
I want to try this with an oddly colored item.
Sure, or a multicolored item that comes in different.
Get a purple banana and see if we interpret it.
That's a good point. Let's see what it looks like there. But I love this, because this also really shows you the capacity of the human mind to immediately assume something upon, and we see this all the time when people write. We assume a word is there which isn't there. They test you in those kinds of ways because your mind already accepts these truths as they go forward. And I think this is very similar to what we see sometimes, those collages of pictures that are of a certain thing, and then they overall are an overall picture of something else completely.
Sure.
But they're using images from certain things to combine together, and you're like, how do they do that? How do they even know to do that? And that's what's so amazing. And here, this is very clearly something that's meant to explore how your mind conceives, because they talk about it's about the cones and wavelengths and separation, like you said, the white spaces. All those things factor into this looking this way, and it's an actual picture, though, of actual strawberries on a cake that his wife baked. So
oh yeah, there's a real picture where the strawberries are in fact red, but Kitaoka treated this image to make it completely comprised of small blue and black pixels with white space in between. And our brains do process the white space or the void to form this on our own. He did say that he is an experimental psychologist who studies visual illusions as well as makes illusion artworks. This is one of them. And that his wife is the one who made the cake to begin with, and it was tasty.
Yeah, I'm sure it was tasty. It looks tasty to me. There's no illusion there.
It looks much more appetizing in the original form.
Yeah.
But this is really cool. I would like to see more images like this actually and see what my brain comes up with. Maybe if I see enough of them, I could train my brain to be dumb and not form the, no, I hope not. But it's an interesting part of how our brains process imagery and color and context of what we've already learned. Audience, did you think that the image was not red? I want to know how you arrived at that point. Let us know below in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more. There's a new school of wizardry and witchcraft, and guess what? It's not Hogwarts at all, and you can go to it. Let's take a look. For creative and possibly legal reasons, this has no official correlation to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and the houses are different as well. However, you can kind of guess where this came from and where our collective interest in this kind of thing would come from. But it looks to be a full intensive 3-day LARPing weekend with this own set world, or universe that they've created. It's called the Bothwell School of Witchcraft, and it would cost about $490 to $550 to start with in American currency. It is held in East Sussex, and the houses that they have are sorted. Well, there's 4 houses you can be sorted into, like something. Boyswick, Macnewthorne, Tabwin, and Wissenforth. And the tickets are not on sale yet, but if you want to, it is recommended you follow the school on social media till the 28th. John, you do not look pleased.
I am so incredibly pissed at this. Like, as a person who works in the Wizarding World of Harry Potter at Universal Studios, I am so mad at this. This is ridiculous. JK should sue the crap out of these people. She should sue them into the ground. She should burn the castle after she sues them into the ground. This is ridiculous. It's so Harry Potter. It's Harry Potter. Harry Potter. Why do you get to do 50 Shades Darker with Harry Potter? That's not right.
Wait, was that 50 Shades Darker?
Well, I'm saying because it's isn't that 50 Shades Darker is like that fan fiction of other stuff? You know what I'm saying?
I thought you meant like it was sexual. Okay.
Yeah, no, I just mean this is essentially stealing an idea that's already been very much a very fantastic idea, popularized by a broke single mother on a train who wrote this. You're gonna take her amazing success and gank it completely, and I am so incredibly mad at this. Like, go make your own thing. The fact that you don't even have, the fact you do 4 houses, you could do 5, you could have done 3. But no, you wanna do 4 because you wanna make it as close to Harry Potter as possible. And you encourage people to play once, and even in the ad, they look exactly like they're coming out of Hogwarts with the colors and the ties and everything. How is this legal? JK, how is this legal? I don't understand. I don't understand.
I mean, I'm sure there's somewhere in there where you could apply a legal.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably put some legal finagling in there, like very much in the way where certain like Star Trek fan enterprises do seem to take from the IP,
right,
and profit off of that, which is usually where they draw the line.
Yes.
Yeah, I think someone, an attorney for J.K. Rowling and representative of Harry Potter and the wizarding world might be able to make some kind of legal demand here.
Yeah.
It looks kind of like, you know, when Halloween stores have red plumber and green plumber instead of Mario.
Instead of Mario.
Luigi.
Right. That's right. 99-cent store. It's what it feels like, a 99-cent store version of Harry Potter. It's so wrong.
I think maybe people might have fun LARPing at least.
Yes, but come LARP at the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. Come LARP here.
I did notice there was some kind of like dragon puppet that kind of reminded me of the Toad puppets.
Sure.
At the Wizarding World.
Of course, the frogs, the frog choir. Yeah.
Sorry,
yeah.
frog choir.
Yeah. Let's get that right.
I'm sorry.
I'm joking. But no, it's just, to me, it's just this madness. This is absolute madness. I don't know how, you know, if I was a billionaire, I would hire a bunch of people. I would pay the $550 to fly them all out to protest this thing for all 3 days. Just protest right outside that castle to pieces, because it's just so wrong. This is such a beloved property, such a beautiful property, and people, like, their lives have been changed by reading these books.
Oh,
so
mine has.
Yeah, exactly. So for
I think I was certainly in a different trajectory before I read Harry Potter.
See, and that I hear that story all the time working in the land as a wand keeper. I hear it all the time. People come after I do the shows and I pair them with their wands. They come up and talk to me, and their love of what they've just experienced, their love of Harry Potter, they like, because you can't play like you've read the books, like the books do not exist, right? Those are historical documents, so that you have to play in that game with them, but you see the effect. And so to see these people just coming in and stealing this whole entire idea for their own financial benefit, it just reeks of disgustingness. And that's from me.
Well, if you don't want to go on this, don't follow their social media.
Sorry, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings.
We're just talking about
okay.
it. I didn't buy a ticket for this. It's just something that exists. It does seem to be a LARPing weekend. As mentioned, they do not have licenses to Harry Potter or the Wizarding World, so you would not be able to roleplay any of those characters. You would roleplay a character they create, much in the way you would. Well, you would tell them like a little bit about yourself, and they would form a character, much like you would in any role-playing game, like D&D or something like that. That's not copyrighted, and I think that's the most fun part of role-playing games, personally. And then I have fallen off somewhere after character creation.
I'm Larry Popper. I'm the wizard Larry Popper. What? This is.
I have a star on my forehead, and my glasses are square-shaped. And I have a pet
lightning, it's thunder.
bird.
I'm going to kill everybody.
Okay, that's a good way to end this. Oh boy. I mean, this could hurt. I don't think it would hurt her IP because it's so powerful.
Right, of course.
And people do know the difference between what we can nicely call an homage and or what we can meanly call a ripoff. Wherever you lie in there. But it's fair, though. I mean, you don't want someone representing you in a way that's not consistent with how you want to be represented. That's why you're not allowed to show up at Disneyland in a Snow White costume.
Yeah, exactly.
That's why you might get in trouble if you are wearing a red plumber or green plumber costume and run your business as Mario Kart. That is a story from last week. Audience, do you think it's cool to do this, or does it ultimately hurt the franchise? Or is it worth it for the fun that the people will have? Let us know what your thoughts are below in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more. There's a massive data dump from WikiLeaks, codenamed Vault 7, as it appears today. It's part of a bigger series called Year Zero, which looks like it will be much larger than Snowden's release, and it has some pretty disturbing details. So right now, it's early on in the development of this story. Some of the information in the documents, according to the New York Times, appeared to be genuine, though there are people who doubt some parts of what has been released so far. There are some scary sounding details in here, which if you take as true, you may or you may not, would mean an assault to, I don't know why I laugh right now, probably because I was just really uncomfortable.
You're nervous.
An
Yeah,
assault to your data privacy and your privacy in general. Some of the highlights include malware that can infest any smartphone on the planet, an app called Weeping Angel, Doctor Who fans, that turns Samsung smart TVs into always-on microphones for CIA spying, and a program called Fine Dining that helps agents build custom cyber weapons for specific purposes. If this is true, WikiLeaks say that rival states, cyber mafia, and even teenage hackers could be using these tools right now.
Yeah, this is unsettling stuff. This just gets worse and worse, doesn't it? But there doesn't seem to be, every time one of these cyber breaks happen, they seem to be more severe. Like the article says, it's 3 years worth of Snowden releases. It's over 8,500 documents are released. So yeah, it is just breaking. So obviously we're not going to have all the knowledge of how legitimate this stuff is. But the timing of it is really, really interesting, considering everything that happened over the weekend with Trump saying that Obama had wiretapped his phones and all this stuff. And then,
To be clear, there's no evidence that Obama wiretapped any
absolutely
of Trump's
no
phones.
evidence at all. But like this seems to be a battle on a level that we are, as like regular citizens, really do not conceive of or understand. Like this seems to be connected in some way. And I know they're going to say they say that it's not connected at all, but to me, the timing is really suspicious. And okay, they're doing all this huge data dump at a time when Trump is actively trying to undercut the CIA and the FBI as people who have any credibility, so that if this evidence comes out of the stuff he's been doing with Russia, or people who are working with him doing with Russia, he has already undercut the credibility of the people releasing this information, so that the public call for his impeachment or him to be convicted or anybody involved with him to be convicted is undercut initially because you've undercut the source of this information. It's devilishly brilliant in its way, you know?
We've looked at WikiLeaks recently and have noticed that there does seem to be a change in tone.
Yes.
A change in targets as well. And it does, there has been some concern over whether Julian Assange had been compromised in any way. Yeah. Or if he was acting on his own accord anymore. Yeah. So those suspicions are in line with each other, and it is all about suspicions. I mean, sometimes when you say, to put on certain protections for your own personal data security, people will say you're being paranoid, but then you hear things like this and you realize, oh no, and you do have a right to your own data, and you do have a right to privacy, and it just seems like more and more we're letting this go by the wayside. Yeah. It shouldn't be something that you just get used to giving up.
Yeah, and I have a Samsung Smart TV, so this scares the heck out of me. Like, what microphone? I don't have a microphone on that TV that I know of, so how could they activate a microphone on the television? So to me, this is all really shocking, unsettling stuff. I also have a smartphone. So if they're recording us, like what's the level to which they can have access to? And if they're doing this in a way to kind of showcase how easy it is to get this information, the teenage hackers, of course, that's the boogeyman that they put out there.
Well, they did write that in the statement from WikiLeaks.
Yeah, they put that in there as a boogeyman type of thing, because like everyone's afraid teenagers having access to your stuff. They'll put it all over the internet. But how much of that is true? We don't know how much of it, because they were saying.
I would say they're less of a threat than I would say other states.
Yes.
This is my personal opinion. I generally am on board with Anonymous and what they do, generally. But that's a whole other conversation about the nature of the group and anonymity, as it were. That is a little bit different. Some are saying that some of the information released does seem misleading. For instance, certain techniques detailed in there would be able to bypass encryption services to possibly retrieve the information before it is encrypted in certain apps such as WhatsApp, Signal, Telegram, Weibo, Confide, and Cloakman. And it seems a little dubious to some that they would name these specific things and going around them. But we're still considering the veracity of these claims. So far, there are some that do look credible from credible sources, at the very least. And it is something to think about, for sure.
Yeah. How much more? I was in military intelligence for 8 years in the Army, so this was like the initial stages of understanding hacking, understanding these kinds of things. So this unsettles me on so many levels, because this is just going to get worse and worse, these dumps, because they get bigger and bigger. So the access to more and more information out there,
Yeah, well, as this comes out, I'm sure there will be more and more information released from these data dumps, more from the year one information coming out. Audience, do you believe this is true? And if it is true, what can we do about it? Please let us know what you think below in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more. Breath of the Wild is the biggest, most exciting Zelda game thus far, though some of the joy you might get from it might be from unexpected places. So we are looking at this release along with Nintendo Switch, which is very recent. And I would say this is the console selling game.
Yeah.
This is the one that people want to play. A lot of times we're seeing people spend $360 just to play this one game, and that's because people love it so much. And it is very interesting. It's one of the most big, well, it definitely is the biggest Zelda game. And you can do anything, go anywhere. That's part of it. So you would be able to climb up walls and do. In my demo, I got a game over screen by falling off of a tower because I didn't realize I wouldn't be stopped in any way. It's a lot. It's a very exciting game. Besides that, though, let's take a look at a quick trailer.
That look on your face tells me that you have no recollection of me, however.
I think you are now ready to hear what happened 100 years ago.
So all of that massive land you can take on, and you can do all of those exciting things in there. However, Nintendo creative genius Shigeru Miyamoto, apparently, according to reports, only chose to climb trees during the demo of Breath of the Wild when it was during an internal test. And this is when they put rupees and apples all over the map, and he just chose to climb up trees and get them, and he made his own little like mini game out of this. And it's an interesting game also because while you have these easier, softer moments like this where you can kind of form your own puzzle, where you're running out of stamina and falling, it's a little bit harder than old Zelda games. You can die a lot, and sometimes that's the fun of it.
Yeah, and the exchange is that you can also finish the game before actually finishing the whole game. You can actually end the game before you finish the whole game and get to the end point, and that's interesting. They moved they made him right-handed when he was left-handed before.
I don't like that. I am left-handed.
So these things, because of the controllers, they made him right-handed. So that's interesting. But I like the fact that they went in within the world they'd already created and were like, how can we accentuate the world? How can we make the more real world, more available? And it takes advantage of the technology has been progressing since the last Zelda game had come out. And so, yeah, climb the walls, climb the trees. You can even slide down the walls instead of falling down the walls. So maybe next time slide down the tower instead of falling off the tower.
I only had a limited amount of time during the demo, but it was fun. And it is harder than older games. And you would be, I liked that I got to cook things early on. But talking about the higher level of, I guess, difficulty and more proclivity to falling, game director Hidemaru Fujibayashi said that when we saw that, we also didn't see it as something negative. There's actually kind of a fun to be had from falling and dying. You learn to be careful and be cautious, and we felt that gave a lot of players the emotional preparedness to take on the rest of the world, so we ultimately decided that we should let them die. They fall, they learn.
It's not just a game, it teaches you about life. How positive is that for Zelda? And also there's voice acting in this. And me as a voiceover artist, I was really happy to hear this because apparently there wasn't that in the games before.
There's a little bit.
Yeah, but there's actually a lot more in this, right? Exactly, grunts and groans. But there's like noises. Actual things that are, as we saw at the end of the video, there's someone talking there. So I think that's great. If you're gonna come out with something, you gotta make it appeal to 2017 and you gotta make it so much more interesting, and it seems like they did that here. And if you're gonna use it to sell a console, it's gotta really be, and it's getting fantastic reviews all across the board, so.
It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I got chills personally playing it.
And what console you play it on matters in terms of graphics as well.
Well, you can only play it on one console.
I thought there was a second console that had less you could play it on, but that might be me just getting it wrong.
You technically can play it on two different ways, where you plug it in TV mode, and then you could take it, lift it out and go in the smaller screen.
Yes.
I do prefer it on TV mode though.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you can take it to go if maybe you need to get on the train or something, and you're addicted to playing this game. You have 3 hours to go, sure. 3 to 6 is the typical life. I would assume on the lower end because of battery life because
Right.
it does seem like a more intensive game. But it's not exactly clear to me, at least. It looks great. I love that they're taking this new method of not just game producing, but console producing and looking more toward learning lessons from other game creators and other console makers as well.
Yeah.
Nintendo does have their own unique sort of beauty, but I do like that they're changing it a little bit just to be more accessible and desirable to people. And I don't think it's hurt them at all. You may have different opinions. Audience, have you played Breath of the Wild? And do you love to fall and die like Fujibayashi's son said? Yeah? Maybe. Let us know what you think of the game so far below in the comments, and please like and subscribe for more. Logan producer Simon Kinberg and Hutch Parker recently talked about the movie, but with it they released more about what's coming up for the X-Men movie universe as it stands. So I'm hoping not to spoil Logan too much.
Oh, okay.
Not too much.
All right.
Because I don't know if everyone's seen it yet.
The ship sinks. No.
It has a beginning and it has an end. How about that? And we're going into this larger world after. I mean, okay, maybe we just won't spoil the end. We have to spoil parts of Logan because we do have Laura as a character. We do know that she's X-23. I don't think the film makes it clear if she's Logan's clone or Logan's daughter.
Pretty much Logan's daughter. I mean, Professor X makes it kind of clear in the car that she is his daughter.
Not just a clone.
Not just a clone.
Because when they
use
were
his DNA.
Yeah, when they were talking about it, it wasn't clear if there was a biological mother or not to me.
Well, there were those Mexican mothers.
I thought they may have been surrogates, though. I wasn't sure.
Certainly possible. Well, there we go.
But then they did specifically hire a little girl who's half Spanish and half English.
Yes.
She's not of Mexican descent, so I don't. It's not really clear to me, at least from that meta standpoint.
Right.
She did a great job, though. Daphne Keane. She was able to steal scenes from even Hugh Jackman.
Yes, she was. She was great.
And looking forward, the question is, are they going to use X-23 in further movies? Pretty much the answer is we can't tell you that so far. But they did tell us some things about future X-Men or X-Force movies that are coming up. One, Supernova, is just a code name. It's not the name of the movie. It's like Blue Harvest or whatever code names you have to work under for the auspices of secrecy. There was something interesting they said about going forward with Jean Grey, Phoenix, Dark Phoenix. Well, I can't comment on what we're doing with this next X-Men movie, but I think a way to talk about it potentially is to talk about X-Men The Last Stand, and then that being a Dark Phoenix movie that we didn't get quite right. I think of maybe a few mistakes we made in that movie. I can think of more. And every movie has mistakes, but the main mistake we made in that movie was taking the Dark Phoenix story, which is such a vast and profound saga, and making it a subplot of the movie as opposed to the main plot of the movie. I think if we were to make a Dark Phoenix movie in the future, it would be a Dark Phoenix movie about her struggle and really should be the A plot and the primary of the movie. Okay, that sounds positive.
That was the problem with the movie?
There were several problems with that movie, and it's kind of crazy to think that Logan is technically an X-Men movie because it is head and shoulders above the rest of the X-Men movies. I mean, you can argue that they're good in their own way, but I think Logan is solidly, objectively a great movie.
Yep, you can't find, I mean, you're only nitpicking if you're finding something wrong with the movie. Whereas with even the original X-Men and the X2 movies, there are reasons that you have
deeply problematic.
Yeah, exactly. And there are issues with some of the acting, issues with some of the direction, issues with some of the stories in those films. But Logan is so almost critic-proof in its own way that you're right, Kim. It stands head and shoulders above. And the way Simon Kinberg portrays it in this article is that he's talking about it as an alternate yet connected universe, along with Deadpool and possibly X-Force. And so it may be they're creating almost like this separate branch of films where they're allowed to explore the darker aspects of the comic book, of these heroes in the comic books, and people are going to come and watch it. You know,
well, I mean, canonically, they were able to kind of reverse the history.
Yes.
Literally.
Yeah, with Days of Future Past. That's
and
right.
change it all up.
Right.
Is that a way of admitting that those movies were not great? I read that as yes.
Yes.
The Last Stand had so many problems. Why would you kill Cyclops off screen?
Yeah. Well,
that's a main character.
you got to look at who the director was, and then from the director you go all the way down. That's kind of how I look at it. And as he didn't quite get it right, I think Bryan Singer did a nice job with 1 and 2. I think 3 is where you have Ratner coming in and doing some lunatic stuff, and maybe he was just given free reign of the toolbox to. And it's ironically the highest grossing of those first 3 X-Men movies, but that doesn't mean it's the most beloved, because it clearly wasn't. Because you're right, Days of Future Past is their way of resetting everything and starting over again and letting people know, just like Star Trek, the reboot, reset the entire universe again with that red matter. And so those kinds of things happen so they just can have more things to play with, more storylines to play with. I think that's how we got Logan, Old Man Logan, essentially, in this film.
Yeah, to an extent.
Yeah.
But the way it turned out was, it was just great.
Yes.
I really had high hopes, but it's kind of like in the way I have high hopes for certain WB movies where I don't necessarily see a past that would indicate that it would take a thoughtful and provocative look at the characters. And I loved this movie.
Yeah.
It's Sony Marvel's The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Not Sony, Fox Marvel's The Dark Knight.
And
Sorry.
it'll be interesting to see if they do. When it sounds like Kinberg, that's his Hollywood speak of saying they are going to do the Dark Phoenix storyline. This is going to be a real challenge for Sophie Turner. Like Sophie Turner does great work as Sansa Stark in the Game of Thrones. I absolutely love her on that show. But this is a whole other animal, and I wonder if Famke is going to be part of this. I wonder how they're going to make it work, I just wonder who's going to be part of all these situations. How they're going to make this Dark Phoenix thing work correctly.
It's a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
It's big too. It should never have been, just a side subplot of a story, because it is a story, and I think it would span more than one movie for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
But it is kind of a disservice to smush it all up and scoot it to the background of what else is going on. I hope they can. I don't necessarily know if this is a great idea, but if we're looking at Logan as the proof, then yeah, do it, because Logan was really good. But I don't know if it would work necessarily, because part of Logan was that they sort of made it a more grounded story.
Yes.
They took out any end of credits clip. They took out, I think originally Mr. Sinister was supposed to be a part of it.
Oh, was he?
And
Okay.
that was rejected because it was too fantastical.
Well, there were rumors about Sabretooth coming. Lee Schreiber had said he wanted to do it, and James Mangold said that they had written a whole scene for Sabretooth to come back. He's older, he's working someplace, and Logan needs some supplies, and it happens to be that he has to go to Sabretooth's place to get those supplies, his store to get those supplies. But the scene was in there right up until they just about started filming, and then they cut it out thinking it would have undercut what they were trying to create with Logan, and I thought it was brilliant to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it is cool that they broke the mold, sort
Yes.
of, because with superhero movies, it's always a to be continued.
Yes.
And this is a piece of this puzzle, but this was its own solid piece. And I love the way they left it. And I hope you continue to do this over at Fox, Kinberg, and other producers and creators of these movies. Audience, do you think they could handle the Dark Phoenix saga in a thoughtful way? Maybe. Let us know what you think below, and please like and subscribe for much more.
All right, every day I tell you that we've got a big show ahead for you guys. Almost every day. Sometimes we're, of course, unduly honest, as we tend to be on the Young Turks, and we'll tell you that we have a show, that there's not a lot in the news. Now, that hasn't happened in quite some time since the advent of Trump, of course. But today, we have a gigantic show. A little bit later in the program, the repeal of Obamacare. What is in the replacement? I will give you all the details. In the second hour, Anna and I will go through how they plan to defund Planned Parenthood through the repeal of Obamacare, and how they're obsessed with lottery winners. They do not want lottery winners getting health care from the government. Okay, very, very important, okay? But a theme of today's show, as you'll see, is the right-wing hatred of the poor, and, as you'll see in the first segment, of other races. Speaking of which, that brings us to Ben Carson. That's also later in the program. It turns out the slaves were immigrants, and they came here for the American dream. Okay, that is an interesting theory we will discuss later in the program. And then WikiLeaks with a giant revelations, including whether the CIA can control your television and your car. Okay? No, you will be watching 2.5 Men. No, that's not why they control your TV. Okay. And that's a slightly old school reference at this point. Okay. Now, having said that, we are going to start with fun and disaster. Welcome to the Young Turks. Let's start with fun, combined with disaster. Alex Jones. Okay. Now, we just found out that President Trump was tweeting about how President Obama had wiretapped him during the campaign. Now, of course, he's offered no evidence for that, and almost all the publications that covered it, including Raw's story, described where he got that information from that led him to that tirade. They explained in the story yesterday, they said at this juncture, it appears most likely that President Trump got the idea that Obama wiretapped Trump Towers from right-wing news sites, Breitbart.com and InfoWars, which both along with conservative radio shouter Mark Levin ran with the wiretap story on Thursday and Friday in spite of lack of evidence supporting the charges. So now this is dozens of references now to President Trump getting his news from InfoWars. So I want to give you a sense of the news that comes out of InfoWars. We've done a couple of these segments before where we found out that Alex Jones believes that 90% of the world is going to be killed by the Rothschilds and Rockefellers, where we found out that the real problems in the world are the devil and aliens. Whether they're working with each other or it's alien versus predator, I don't know yet, but I do know they aim to kill a lot of us. So this is the kind of information that the president is getting now. And the president's a full-blown conspiracy theorist and also a full-blown idiot. Speaking of which, that brings us back to Alex Jones. So this is put together by Vice, so I want to give them credit for that, and we'll have the full link below for the full video. And I just gives a fun little sense of whether Alex Jones is stable or not, and whether he can keep it together. Now, he's on some terrestrial radio stations, so he's got to try to keep it together, and he makes an effort here throughout these clips, which you will enjoy.
Your ass. You just get that through your stinking traitorous heads. Excuse me, I apologize. We have a lot of Christian affiliates. I am a Christian, but I will stomp your head in if you start a fight with me, you thug scum. Anyways, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Bunch of cowards. Excuse me. I'm not controlling myself right now. She is a demon damned to hell. Excuse me. I've been trying to control myself, trying to be professional about this. But at a certain point, I'm just really getting pissed. Excuse me. We're not going to have Pepsi with baby flavoring in it. I mean, what the hell have we become? Excuse me. If I didn't have a liberal from New York in the bathroom, I couldn't wipe my ass. Excuse me. I apologize. We have a family audience. That was wrong, and I won't do it again. You think I'm a coward like you? I'm sorry. You dishonorable, cowardly pieces of garbage. Excuse me. Coming for you. Coming for you. We know what you're doing. I'm sorry. Piles of manipulative, lying crap. Oh, excuse me. They're going to burn in hell. Excuse me. This is a time bomb. Oh, excuse me. You're a big tough guy, buddy. You just rammed into me. Ah, how do you like that? Now hit me in the face and see what happens, punk. I'm sorry. There's an attack on the species by a guild of psychopaths, and they must be defeated. I'm going to settle down. Excuse me. I'm going to come back for the next 2 segments, take your calls. Excuse me.
Great job by Vice putting that together. Okay. Excuse me. So this gives you a sense of whether it is intended, like he's doing it for showmanship, or if he really can't control himself. I think we have the answer. He can't control himself. I mean, to be fair, though, he is...
We're under attack.
Excuse me. Hold on.
It's not human intelligence.
Sorry. Hold on. Excuse me.
I want to go to space.
Alex, I think you might already be there. Guy's totally cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. cannot control himself if paid to. And in the midst of all that, Pepsi with baby flavoring? And this is the guy our president listens to for news. Wow. Who's the crazy one now? Okay. Excuse me. Sorry. Excuse me. God, that was funny. That was fun for everybody. All right, we're moving forward. So now, speaking of crazy, we stay in Crazy Town and stay with Katrina Pearson. Katrina Pearson was a spokesperson for the Trump campaign. You saw her a lot on TV during the campaign, and she would say outrageous things, but it was okay. It was all in service to Donald Trump, and the dear leader did in fact, of course, had to be served. And if the truth got mangled along the way, and if she was a little too combative, well, that's part of the business, right? And she, as Raw Story reminds us, among other things, she blamed former President Barack Obama for the 2004 death of Muslim American soldier Humayun Khan, which makes no sense. And as Raw Story explains there, despite the fact that Obama was just a state senator at the time, she flat out denied that then candidate Trump had really proposed a ban on all Muslims entering the United States, despite proposing exactly that. And she claimed that presidential candidates releasing their tax returns was a novelty tradition, despite the fact that it's been done by every presidential nominee since 1970s. Now, look, we can go on, and she would also attack people that were on the other side nonstop. Okay, we could roll tape forever. So for that loyalty, I assume that she's got some sort of post in the White House. We just don't know it because it's, look, she's relatively inexperienced in government, so she's working her way up. No, she got no post at all. So all the people who gave Donald Trump their loyalty, Chris Christie, Newt Gingrich, Rudy Giuliani, whatever happened to Scotty Nell Hughes, Katrina Pearson, sorry, it doesn't work that way. The dear leader takes, and unless you give him actual hard cold cash, it's not much coming back in your direction. But if you give him cash, then you got a spot in the cabinet or in the government. And now get a load of the reason why they did not have her in the government. Well, it turns out they thought that she was too combative and unstable. The people who told her to do exactly that on television over and over again. So Trump campaign source says, I love Katrina, but she was bitching to everyone that they should have chosen her and not Sean, as in Sean Spicer for White House press secretary. It got back to Jared Kushner and Reince Priebus, and they ultimately decided they just didn't want to deal with that sort of drama. Now, when that sort of drama helps Donald Trump, he loves it. That's good ratings. You get the campaign fodder out there, create some drama, get some votes, yell at other people. Oh, when it comes to us, no. We don't need that kind of drama. Katrina, you've been of good service. Now move along. Now, on your way out, of course, there is a consolation prize, and that's money. So you'll now be part of the pro-Trump advocacy group called America First Policies. Of course, she goes on to say, White House press secretary, no, I didn't want that. In the government, at the White House, having real power, no, I didn't want that. No, it's no big deal to me at all. No, yeah, I like consolation prizes. So, in other words, Katrina, good job, little pat on the head, get paid off by some rich guy funding America First Policies, but keep your mouth shut, okay? And stop your bitching. How did all those attacks against fellow women turn out for you, Katrina Pearson? Now, all of a sudden, the boys in charge tell you to stop your bitching. Sad day for you. Okay, now, these stories are fun, interesting, but they pale in comparison to the next story I'm about to give you. Okay. Steve Bannon is chief advisor to the President of the United States, and often he's called racist. He bragged about how Breitbart, the website that he ran, was the home of the alt-right. That's for white supremacists, and almost everyone agrees to that, except some in the alt-right. Some in the alt-right are proud of being white supremacists, and others say, no, that's slightly unfair. I mean, we're Judeo-Christian supremacists, we're supremacists of different ilks, etc. Okay, so is Steve Bannon really racist? Well, we might settle that today because Paul Blumenthal in Huffington Post did some wonderful research. So first, he noticed that Steve Bannon kept talking about this thing called the Camp of the Saints. Here, let me give you Bannon's quotes on it, and then we'll tell you what the Camp of the Saints is. You're going to want to know, okay? So he says, back in October 2015, Bannon does, it's been almost a Camp of the Saints type invasion into Central and then Western and Northern Europe, referring to immigration there from the non-European parts of the world. He said again in January 2016, the whole thing in Europe is all about immigration. It's a global issue today, this kind of global Camp of the Saints. One more, again in January 2016, it's not a migration, it's really an invasion. I call it the Camp of the Saints. And it goes on and on and on, constant reference to Camp of the Saints. I just gave you 3 to give you a sense of it, okay? And it is not immigration, it's an invasion. So what in the world is this thing? It turns out it's an obscure novel from 1973. It's a French novel called The Camp of the Saints. And it is about an invasion of the white world and the end of the white world when non-white people come to Europe. Oh, wow. That's interesting. Now, this is apparently popular in the alt-right. It's been popular in the far right for a long time in Europe and America. Very rich right-wing philanthropists fund to reprint this from time to time. So even if it's not making money, they want to subsidize this kind of propaganda. So, well, okay, what's in the book? Well, they went and asked Stanford University French professor about this, and they're familiar with the book, and they explain it this way. This book is racist in the literal sense of the term. It uses race as the main characterization of characters. It describes the takeover of Europe by waves of immigrants that wash ashore like the plague. Okay, that sounds pretty bad. It's about to get worse. Back in 1975, Kirkus Reviews did a review of this book when it first came out. Here's how they described it. They said, the publishers are presenting the Camp of the Saints as a major event, and it probably is, in much the same sense that Mein Kampf was a major event. Damn. Okay, wow. I'm going to tell you the plot in a second. You'll make up your own mind. One last quote from a reviewer. In this case, it's actually a political figure, Linda Chavez. She worked under Ronald Reagan. She worked under George W. Bush, deeply conservative, deeply right-wing. Nonetheless, she says about the book, because it is true, quote, it is a really shockingly racist, and to have the counselor to the president see this as one of his touchstones, I think says volumes about his attitude. Now, I never heard of this before, and I read those quotes about the reviews before I knew what the plot of the book was. I was like, shockingly racist. I don't know, it's after covering the news for over 20 years, after covering these guys for a couple of years, it's hard to shock me. So let's see if it's actually shocking. Well, it turns out the plot of the book is about 800,000 Indians are coming to France as immigrants, as refugees, because they're impoverished. They're led by a figure that is called the Turd Eater. He literally eats crap in this book. He is the leader of in this case, Indians, but really non-Western world overall. Okay, now then the book says, all right, are the French going to have the courage to do the right thing? Oh, okay, what's the right thing? To murder all of them. No, not to block the ship and not let it come into France because they're worried about the population or the environment or whatever. No. The right thing in the book is to murder 800,000 immigrants who are impoverished and seeking help. Wow. You know what? That is actually shockingly racist. So the main hero of the book is a right-winger who murders immigrants and also murders people on the left who try to help immigrants. That's the hero of the book. Okay. I'm going to go back to Blumenthal here for a description of some of the things that happen in the book. He says, poor black and brown people literally overrun Western civilization in this book. Chinese people pour into Russia. The Queen of England is forced to marry her son to a Pakistani woman. Egads. The mayor of New York must house an African-American family at Gracie Mansion. Look at that worldview. To them, having black people at Gracie Mansion is like unthinkable. Like he's forced to house them. Well, as it turns out in real life, he's not forced to house them. He houses them anyway because he's married to an African-American. And his family is obviously African-American. So Wow, that came true. What a horror story. But if you're deeply racist, that is a horror story. To be forced to marry a Pakistani woman. Oh my God. And to house African Americans. This is what Steve Bannon thinks is such a great book and his guide for immigration. These people are nuts. I'm not anywhere near done. Get a load of this. This explains a lot. They refer to the left that actually believes that we shouldn't be racist and that we should help people across the world as their culturally cuckolded white supporters. I don't know if that's where this whole cuck craze began, but that is a quote from the book about these guys who want to help other human beings, cucks. Okay. Next time you use it, understand at least partly where it came from. The book glorifies colonial wars of conquest and the formation of the Ku Klux Klan, in case you were confused as to whether it was racist enough. And then how does it describe brown people in the book? Well, in the case of the boat of immigrants, they say that they were, of course, hypersexualized. It's another old racist stereotype trope. They say there were everywhere rivers of sperm streaming over bodies, oozing between breasts and buttocks and thighs and lips and fingers. As usual, they're obsessed with sex from people of different skin colors. And they say it's terrible. Oh, the oozing sperm. Let me tell you more and more about it. Very par for the course for deep racists like the person who wrote this book and the person who celebrates this book, which is, of course, Steve Bannon. And finally, let me give you a sense of the main protagonist of this book. As Huffington Post explains, as he talks to the hippie he will soon kill, Calgo, that's the hero, explains how the youth went so wrong. That's, quote, that scorn of a people for other races, the knowledge that one's own is the best, the triumphant joy at feeling oneself to be part of humanity's finest. None of that had ever filled these youngsters' addled brains. So if you're not a racist and you don't hate the other races, your brain has been addled. You've been cuckolded by people who actually care about other human beings. This is chief advisor to the President of the United States. He nonstop praises this book and says it's a warning from what might happen. By the way, you know what else happens in the book when the immigrants finally land in France? In their mind, in the book, that triggers and was meant to trigger the rest of the world overthrowing the Western powers. Because then they view that as the weakness of white people, that they would accept other people, and hence they must be overthrown and murdered and killed. Because it is a classic case of projection. Since we murdered, conquered, took over, abused, we assume they must have the same secret plan. So that is why Steve Bannon constantly talks about immigration, not in terms of helping the poor, the needy, but talks about it in terms of an invasion, as this book, The Camp of the Saints, does. In fact, now let's go back to Bannon in April of 2016. He says, the refugee crisis didn't just happen by happenstance, which again is a different kind of mental statement. What do you mean it didn't happen by happenstance? Do you mean that the non-Western world planned to pretend to have a war in Syria and pretended that the civil war was so terrible that it caused 4 to 5 million people to be displaced, but actually it's a secret plot by the brown people to come into France and Germany and America and take it over in their secret invasion? Lunatics. And then he continues in that same statement. These are not war refugees. It's something much more insidious going on. Absolute freaking lunatic. He thinks that there's this giant conspiracy where these immigrants are not actually running from their war-torn area. What? Everybody made that up. It's like the moon landing. It never happened. Everything is just total fantasy. There is no civil war there. Iraq didn't actually happen. None of this happened. It's actually a plot by the brown people to take over our culture, our beloved white culture. In fact, in June of 2016, he says to, oh, by the way, Jeff Sessions of all people, in another interview, do you believe that elites in this country have the backbone, have the belief in the underlying principles of the Judeo-Christian West to actually win this war, referring to immigration. In his mind, this is a war, and he thinks it's brown people versus white people, Western civilization versus non-Western. And the answer is that you win the war. How do you win a war? Well, as the Camp of the Saints explain, you murder them all. Chief advisor to the President of the United States. I have to confess that Linda Chavez was right. He is shockingly racist. Even I had no idea how racist he was. Wow. Young Turks. Alex Jones is absolutely crazy. Ah, excuse me. Sorry, excuse me. Okay. Julia Mahoney writes in, it's like Alex is having a war with the good voice and the bad voice in his head in front of an audience. Santos Juante writes in, Alex Jones appears to be possessed by those space aliens. Maybe that's what explains it. And then your mama says, with books like this on Banna's must-read list, I'd love to see what else is on his recommended Amazon reading list. Well, because of the WikiLeaks story we're going to do later in the program, you might find out. Okay. And for the good folks who are donating to our journalism campaign, much love, thank you. Let me read off a couple of names. $15 from Davidson in Virginia, $27 from Jeffrey in New York, and $27 from Joy in Kentucky. Thank you, Joy, Jeffrey, all of you guys. Much, much appreciated. All right, now, let's talk about disastrous news about the repeal of the Affordable Care Act. Okay. Well, the Republicans have finally announced how they are going to repeal and replace Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act. Well, it's not good news. Well, to be fair, it depends on who you are. If you're young, there's actually a little bit of good news in there. If you're old, ooh, not so much. If you're rich, wonderful news in there. If you're poor and need health insurance, not so much. So let's go to a description. The plan endorsed by House Speaker Paul Ryan, by contrast to Obamacare, offers less financial assistance to low-income people, likely resulting in millions of Americans losing the health coverage they have today, and provides tax credits to people with higher incomes. Wow, isn't that nice of them? The bill scraps key consumer protections. Consumers, do we really have to protect them? Why don't we protect the rich instead? The legislation is a vehicle for massive tax cuts for rich people and corporations, paid for by slashing assistance to poor and middle-class people. Enjoy. Now, if you're, by the way, one of those poor elderly people who voted for Donald Trump thinking, oh, I'm finally going to get change. Congratulations, you're about to get change. Now, I'm going to give you the depth of how much your bill can go up in a second. But before we do that, actually, let's pause here to bring in Donald Trump, because I was led to believe by Trump during the campaign that you weren't going to lose your insurance and it wasn't going to cost you anything more and you were going to get all the benefits. Phones for everybody, cars for everybody. You get a car, you get a car, you get health insurance, you get health insurance. You think I'm kidding? Look, it's not hyperbole. Watch Trump.
What's your plan for Obamacare?
Obamacare is going to be repealed and replaced. Obamacare is a disaster. If you look at what's going on with premiums, where they're up 45, 50, 55%.
So how do you fix it?
There's many different ways, by the way. Everybody's got to be covered. This is an un-Republican thing for me to say, because a lot of times they say, no, the lower 25%, they can't afford private. But
universal health care.
I am going to take care of everybody. I don't care if it costs me votes or not. Everybody's going to be taken care of much better than they're taken care of now.
The uninsured person,
right,
is going to be taken care of.
They're going to be taken care of.
How?
I would make a deal with existing hospitals to take care of people. And you know what? This is probably...
Make a deal. Who pays for it?
The government's going to pay for it. And people are going to be able to go out and negotiate great plans with lots of different competition, with lots of competitors, with great companies. And they can have their doctors, they can have their plans, they can have everything.
Turns out not so much. Universal health care paid for by the government, and they can have everything. That's what he just promised you. You just saw it there. Rewind it if you want and watch it again. Okay, yes, that would actually be fairly progressive. It'd be much more progressive than Obamacare. It'd be way to the left of Obamacare. That is not what we got here. We got pretty much the exact opposite. The bill doesn't say how it would pay for its spending after scrapping the taxes that finance the Affordable Care Act. Because the the taxes that went to the rich and large corporations in Obamacare wasn't because Obama and the Democrats are socialists who hate rich. No, it's because you have to find a way to pay for it. This stuff doesn't grow on trees. You have to be responsible. It actually decreased the deficit. Did you know that the Affordable Care Act actually had decreased the deficit? It was planned to. Now, when you take away those taxes that went to the rich and giant corporations, well, then you don't have any money left. Then you've created a giant hole in the deficit, and you can't pay for the plan. And remember when Scott Pelley asked him, he's like, I'm going to the hospitals, they're going to do it, they're going to provide it. Who's going to pay for it? The government's going to pay for it. With whose money? In fact, the House Republican leaders are poised to move the measure forward before scorekeepers at the Congressional Budget Office have made an assessment. Because that's a nonpartisan group. And when they come in and they say, yeah, you just put like $1 trillion hole in the deficit, the Republicans are gonna be like, oops, oh, sorry, we already passed it. What can we do? Oh, deficits. Don't worry about it, deficits don't matter. This is highly irresponsible. Okay, now let's get to the details of what it does. Well, it does give cheaper premiums for younger and healthier people and new tax breaks for more affluent consumers. So if you're rich or you're young, hey, you do get a little bit of a break. Keep it real, that does happen. Okay, if you're young and healthy, as long as you're sure you're gonna stay healthy, you don't have to pay quite as much. So if you're one of those people who's a right winger who doesn't care about anyone else on the planet or what might happen to you at a later time, then you're thinking, score, I knew it. He's for me and screw everyone else. Okay, now who does it hurt? Higher out-of-pocket costs, higher premiums for older and sicker people, and ultimately many more uninsured. Well, look, that's the thing about health insurance. I'm healthy now, but am I positive I'm going to be healthy next year, 5 years from now, tomorrow? That's why we get health insurance, because we're not really sure, are we? So as long as you're healthy now, yeah, you don't have to pay that much because it doesn't cost the health care companies and the health insurance companies that much to insure you. But the minute you turn sick, sad day for you. Well, that's the whole point of health insurance, because we think we're going to get sick at some point. And if you don't cover those people as much, well, then what's the point? Okay, it's a very clever plan that they've come up with. We are fine if you're healthy. When you get sick, though, good luck. The Affordable Care Act limited insurers from charging older customers more than 3 times what they charge younger adults. The House bill would raise that to 5 times. This may enable younger consumers to find cheaper coverage, but older policyholders would face higher rates. Now, I want to explain to you why they do that. It's not that the insurance companies hate older people. It would be a very random discrimination. No, older people get sicker more. They're more likely to have bigger health problems, and it's more likely to cost them money. So if all you cared about was the free market, you'd say, well, that's it. Once you get to a certain age, it doesn't pay me to cover you, so go ahead and die. I'm not going to give you insurance, or your insurance is going to be $1 million. So when you're not going to be able to afford it unless you're incredibly rich, and then when you get sick, you're going to die. Ha ha! Free market, baby! Death to everybody, death panels for everybody, right? Now, we don't like that, not only as Americans, but all across the world. In fact, we're far more right-wing than the rest of developed world, than the rest of Western society, than the rest of Europe, etc. Those folks have figured out, hey, the point of insurance is to make sure we're all okay when we get sick, when we get older, when we need health care. Now, this program basically says, if you're healthy, that's okay. But if you're older, now I know they got to charge you more. So even Obamacare, older people could get charged up to 3 times as much as younger people. Now this plan moves it to 5 times as much. So if you're an older American who thought Trump was going to deliver for you, we got another thought coming to you. If you thought your insurance was going to be cheaper, you got a lot of new thoughts coming your way and a lot of new bills coming your way. Okay. Now, insurers could charge higher premiums to people who did not maintain continuous coverage, a lapse of more than 63 days, 30% more for their policies when they sign up again. So now it gets complicated in the weeds here, but it's funny, that provision is criticized by both sides. The right wing says, nah, we shouldn't cover them at all. Who cares, man? Let them deal with it, okay? I don't want to give any money away to people who need insurance. If they can't afford it, that's called welfare. I don't want it, right? On the other hand, if you thought, well, I don't have to worry about pre-existing conditions anymore, and the Republicans know that that's popular, that Obamacare got rid of the pre-existing condition loophole that the healthcare companies used to use, the health insurance companies, and they said, don't worry about pre-existing conditions. Well, now you have to worry again, because if you switch jobs, you lose insurance for some reason, they're gonna crank up your premiums the minute they have an opportunity to. So is it cheaper for you? Nope. What happened? I thought it was gonna be cheaper for everybody. I thought we're gonna get a chicken in every pot. Okay. Starting in 2020, the federal government would no longer provide those federal funds, the Medicaid grants, for people who newly qualify under the expanded eligibility standards. So less people qualifying to get coverage through Medicaid, plus Medicaid gets turned into block grants, and they are capped. So they do not necessarily meet the needs of the citizens of that particular state. If after a while it doesn't keep up with inflation and there's just not enough money, once again, that's called sad day for you. You no longer have insurance. Did I say everybody would be insured? Why did you trust me? I'm Donald Trump. And by the way, I'm a Republican. Did you not get the memo after all these years that the Republicans work for their rich donors? Whether they're rich individuals or they're multinational corporations. They sign the checks and the Republicans work for them. Now, if you say a lot of times the Democrats work for them too, I hear you, brother. In fact, Obamacare was not some sort of left-wing proposal. It's almost exactly the Heritage Foundation's original proposal. The Heritage Foundation is a right-wing think tank. It's the same plan that Mitt Romney did in Massachusetts. So your two options were right-wing and massively, ridiculously right-wing. That's what happens when the donors write the checks and buy off all of our politicians. I don't know what the next step is, but some conservatives are promising it. National Review is against this. The Koch brothers are against this. They say it's too lenient on the poor. Well, we didn't put our boot firmly enough on their neck. Those guys still might somehow, some of them, still able to retain insurance. Justin Amash, another Republican conservative, calls this plan, this draconian plan, Obamacare 2.0. It's never enough. There's never enough tax breaks for the rich. They gotta just suck up all the money and redistribute that wealth. And if in the process you don't get insurance, you don't get health care coverage, what do they care? When's the last time a poor person wrote a check to a Republican? If you're not writing checks to them, you don't exist. You think they're for you? You have no idea what you're talking about. Now, how this gets resolved at the end is going to be a very interesting dynamic, because they got to keep a couple of dozen Republicans in the House, assuming all the Democrats vote against it. And with Democrats and their craven ability to sell out and to capitulate to Republicans, I wouldn't bank on that. But if they lose some conservative Republicans, they might not be able to pass the bill. In the Senate, they only have a 2-person majority. So you lose basically 3 because the vice president could break the tie. You lose 3 Republican senators in the Senate and you won't be able to pass it in the Senate. Again, don't worry. Corporate shills like Joe Manchin pretending to be a Democrat will probably step up to the plate and help Trump and the Republicans. But you got to be careful about each vote. And the moderates don't like this either, even the moderate Republicans. Let me tell you about that. On Monday afternoon, Republican Senators Rob Portman, Shelley Moore Capito, Cory Gardner, and Lisa Murkowski, all from states that have expanded Medicaid, warned that they could not vote for a bill that took away federal money for the expansion. So it's not a done deal yet. You can actually, there are not very many moderate Republicans at all in Congress, but hey, there's 4 that are kind of moderate in this case, because the people in their own states would be crushed by this bill and they're not going to be happy about it. So let them know. And let those senators know. Let the moderate Republicans, however, like 2 or 3 of them that, like I said, that remain. Let the conservative Republicans know. Let the ones that are just a regular old massively right-wing Republicans know. Let the Democrats know. If they're going to take away your insurance, they're going to increase your insurance. Let them know you are not happy with that. because it's not a dictatorship yet in America. They actually have to pass laws. So this is proposed legislation. By the way, another part of this is also disastrous. They would, in essence, defund Planned Parenthood and not allow your health insurance to cover abortion if you want the tax credits to be applied to it. So which makes covering abortion much more difficult. Planned Parenthood, the tiny percentage of that is abortion. Most of it is just helps poor people and middle-class people, particularly women. If you don't like that they're defunding it, well then fight, because this is not law yet. And they fought Obamacare tooth and nail. When Obamacare was proposed, the media would not stop talking about, you need to get Republicans to agree with the Democrats. But the Republicans were never going to agree with the Democrats, because that's not what this is about. It's not a debate of ideas. They were always going to do the bidding of their donors. So they all voted against it. Now I don't hear the media talking about how they need Democratic votes. No, all of a sudden you don't need bipartisanship. That's okay. Go after the Republicans, and if the Democrats are wavering, absolutely go after them as well to make sure that this is a real fight. They fought Obamacare for at least a year, and they stripped out incredibly important provisions like the public option, which could have actually made it more affordable. So let's actually fight this time for doing the right thing, for getting better coverage, and having a lot more people insured in a humane way. It ain't over till it's over. Go get them. Okay. I got a lot more where that came from. I told you it's a big show. Okay, let's go to Chaffetz. So Jason Chaffetz is an extreme right-winger, and he went on CNN to defend this draconian Republican healthcare proposal. Well, it seems like a lot of people are going to lose their health insurance, and they're not going to be able to afford it, and it's actually going to be more expensive. What happened? I thought you said it was going to be less expensive than Obamacare. Well, basically, Chaffetz telling you, I don't care, man. That's your problem, not my problem. What he says is actually slightly worse. Watch.
Access for lower income Americans doesn't equal coverage.
Well, we're getting rid of the individual mandate. We're getting rid of those things that people said that they don't want. And you know what? Americans have choices, and they've got to make a choice. And so maybe rather than getting that new iPhone that they just love and they want to go spend hundreds of dollars on that, maybe they should invest it in their own health care. They've got to make those decisions themselves.
You really think this is the comical view that Republicans have of poor people? Oh, they're all welfare queens. They're all driving Cadillacs and they got the latest iPhones and they're living in the lap of luxury. They're just pretending to be poor. They're all cheats anyway. You know how the poor are, always living off of us. Why don't you just put your iPhone away and get health care? Now, first of all, I'm going to bother to give you the facts here when it's obvious on its face, but it turns out people who make $30,000 or less, an overwhelming majority of them don't have iPhones. 87% of them don't have iPhones. Okay, huh? You know why? Because they can't afford them. They're not kidding. It's not a joke. It's not a trick. They're actually poor. They actually make less than $30,000 a year, which for Chaffetz and the rest of the incredibly rich politicians we have, like $30,000. Who couldn't afford that? As Rush Limbaugh once said, oh yeah, I had to check into an emergency room. I didn't have insurance. Who cares? All it cost me was half an SUV. Half an SUV's price. And they're like, that's no big deal, right? Don't you all have that? They have no empathy whatsoever. And by the way, an iPhone doesn't cost anywhere near as much as healthcare insurance does, let alone if you don't have insurance, healthcare coverage does. Their lack of humanity is unbelievable. And he further clarified in that same interview. Camarada asked, so in other words, for lower income Americans, you're saying this is going to require some sacrifice on their part? And he responds, yes, I think that's fair. So during the campaign, I don't remember Trump talking about sacrifice. I don't remember you guys talking about sacrifice. I remember you guys telling us it was going to be cheaper, it was going to be better, it was going to cover more people. Now, all of a sudden, after the campaign, oh, no. Sacrifice. Just who cares? Don't eat, whatever. You do whatever you got to do. It's all about choices. Now, that's interesting that Chaffetz says that, because here's a choice the Republicans made in this legislation. They decided to give a giant tax break to the richest people in the country and to multinational corporations. Well, that's an interesting choice you made. it turns out Jason Chaffetz and his fellow Republicans think, well, you know, I love my rich donors. iPhones for everybody if you're rich. Oh, with those tax breaks, you could buy literally thousands, maybe millions of iPhones in combined. Millions of iPhone for you. You're getting billions of dollars in tax breaks. That's a choice Chaffetz made. And then when it comes to the poor, it's like, hey, that's your problem, man. Yeah, hey, some of you aren't gonna have insurance. Tough crap. Shouldn't have voted for a Republican, idiot. Then the rest of the press says that Chaffetz walked it back. Let me show you the interview where he theoretically amended what he said. He didn't amend it at all. Watch.
Comments too that you made on CNN about people making a choice between buying an iPhone and buying healthcare, and you said people are going to have to make sacrifices. Some folks didn't like the way that came out.
Well, what we're trying to say, and maybe I didn't say it as smoothly as I possibly could, but people need to make a conscious choice, and I believe in self-reliance, and they're going to have to make those decisions. Sometimes you got to make some decisions in your life and where to make those investments in your healthcare, maybe a health savings account, which this plan that was introduced is very heavy on.
Really
those are the types of things that you need to make a choice and a decision in your life. And as an adult, you get to make those decisions and live by those consequences.
So he did not amend what he said at all. He just doubled down. You heard it right there. It's amazing how the rest of the media apparently doesn't speak English. Did you just not hear him? He said, you got to make the choices, man, and you got to face the consequences. So now you understand. You vote for Republicans, the consequence is you better be a millionaire or a multinational corporation. Because if you're not, you're gonna get crushed. And then afterwards, they're gonna laugh at you and say, so what? So what? You're not a rich donor of mine. I made a choice. I chose my rich donors over your well-being. Sad day for you. Well, elections have consequences. Thanks for clarifying. Okay, now let me go to Carson. Ben Carson's giving a speech at the Housing and Urban Development, and the staff is all there, and he's going to tell them about the American dream. Well, that sounds lovely. He's going to tell them about immigration. That also sounds lovely, and how they were, came here for opportunity. And then he added something in there that doesn't make any sense at all, because he's Ben Carson. Listen to the very curious remarks he made.
Not 8 hours a day, but 10, 12, 16 hours a day. No such thing as a minimum wage. They work not for themselves, but for their sons and their daughters, and their grandsons and their granddaughters, that they might have an opportunity in this land. That's what America is about. A land of dreams and opportunity. There were other immigrants who came here in the bottom of slave ships, worked even longer, even harder for less. But they too had a dream that one day their sons, daughters, grandsons, granddaughters, great-grandsons, great-granddaughters might pursue prosperity and happiness in this land.
Really, they were immigrants at the bottom of a slave ship? Now, look, if you're being super generous to Ben Carson, you say, look, the guy's a schmuck, doesn't know what he's talking about. He didn't mean immigrants. He just meant what? But, okay, if I were to be generous and put the immigrant word aside, let's talk about the rest of that sentence. And they worked for far less. No, they worked for nothing because they were slaves. He constantly misuses the word slavery. I don't think, there's some chance he doesn't know what it means. You don't work for less when you're a slave. You work for nothing. You are enslaved. It is literal. You're bound up in chains, you're whipped, and if you disobey enough, you're murdered, let alone all the other horrible things that go along with slavery. And the dream, here, let me tell you more about what he thinks the slaves were dreaming. He says, do you know of all the nations in the world, this one, the United States of America, is the only one big enough and great enough to allow those people to realize their dream. And this is our opportunity to enhance that dream. That's what America is about, a land of dreams and opportunity. It wasn't a dream for them. They didn't choose it, they were in chains. It's not like the slaves were like, hey guys, I got a dream that my great-great-great-great-grandchildren, after we're all enslaved and lynched and murdered and have to work for generation after generation for free and whipped and raped and all those things, and they take our kids away from us generation after generation. Then I have a dream later that somehow miraculously it will turn into a land of milk and honey for me. That's not how it happened. They didn't dream that and voluntarily become slaves. They were enslaved. You know what it is, guys? It's that conservatives are missing the most important thing, if you ask me about humanity, which is empathy. Now you would think Ben Carson's black, can't he have empathy for other blacks? No, it's a temporal issue in this case. He didn't live in that time. So that was their problem, not his problem. That was his great-great-grandfather's problem, not his problem. Sorry, Grandpa, they enslaved you and moved your kids around and raped your wife and all that. So, hey man, thanks for the dream. There was no dream, it was a nightmare. It was a total and utter nightmare. Stop treating it like it was some sort of thing that was bestowed upon Africans. That's not how it worked. How much do you want to excuse all the horrible things that happened, Ben Carson? Why? Because his benefactors love it. This is why they pay him money for his speeches and for his books. There's good black man telling us slavery was just fine. Then he realizes, I'm in trouble, I'm not playing well. He changes it a little bit, comes out and says, well, slaves came here as involuntary immigrants. Well, that's a new phrase. They love to invent new phrases. And they're involuntary immigrants. In fact, he's gonna go on with his buddy Armstrong Williams and try to clarify.
I think people need to actually look up the word immigrant. Whether you're voluntary or involuntary, if you come from outside to the inside, you're an immigrant. Whether you're legal or you're illegal, you come from the outside to inside, you're an immigrant. Slaves came here as involuntary immigrants, but they still had the strength to hold on.
Okay, I'm not sweating the word immigrant. What I'm sweating is that you don't understand how slavery worked. But don't worry, I'm sure everybody's comforted by the fact that they're not slaves anymore. It's not torture, it's enhanced interrogation. It's not slavery, it's involuntary immigration. Okay, he now realizes, that wasn't enough either. Then he goes on Facebook and posts this. Says slaves were ripped from their families and their homes and forced against their will. After being sold into slavery by slave traders, the immigrants made the choice to come to America. The two experiences should never be intertwined nor forgotten. So obviously Ben Carson did not write that, because Ben Carson, the real Ben Carson, you heard for yourself. You saw him in the video, you saw him in the interview. This is what a PR person wrote and said, hey, Ben, knucklehead, you idiot. Slavery was a bad thing. It wasn't just involuntary immigration. They didn't do it because they thought there was opportunity. They did it because they had no choice. So I'm going to write this for you because you're so goddamn stupid you can't figure it out. And then I'm going to put it on your Facebook page so that we can try to end this controversy that you needlessly started. Now, to give you a sense of further why he doesn't understand slavery, remember his past comments. Here's what he had said about Obamacare. He said, Obamacare is really, I think, the worst thing that has happened in this nation since slavery. And it is in a way, it is slavery in a way, because it is making all of us subservient to the government, and it was never about health care, it was about control. Yeah, I remember the other day when I went to Obamacare and it whipped me, and it took my kids away. Come on, man, just have some sense of decency. I know, you want to sell books and you want a big government post so you can get your name out there more, so you can do that lecture circuit, and instead of charging $10,000, $20,000 a speech, you want to charge $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and boy, it plays well in the right-wing circles, right? Come on, don't worry about slavery and the how it has cascaded throughout history and led African Americans in a situation where they're greatly disadvantaged. No, that's just them crying. Boo-hoo, slavery. No, you're right. Obamacare is just as bad. Oh, the Obamacare that costs you like 1.4% extra in taxes? Slavery. Okay. I'm gonna read you one last quote from the same speech to give you a sense of what might have happened to Ben Carson. He says, every human being, regardless of their ethnicities or their background, they have a brain, the human brain. You can't overload the brain. Have you ever heard people say, don't do that or you'll overload your brain? You can't overload the human brain. Maybe that's what explains it. Because all this time we've been wondering what in the world happened to that neurosurgeon, that brain surgeon, that actually knew what he was doing and was a successful doctor. Maybe he overloaded his brain, and this is what was the result. All right, I got to take a break, and I got to tell you about WikiLeaks. We'll be right back. All right, Tina Two Turn writes in, Chaffetz's comments about materialism related to health coverage is straight up contempt for the poor. Yes, that is evidenced in a lot of what they do, including a lot of what we're going to share with you guys in the second hour. Greg Elby says, how about Congress no longer gets health care, legal bribes, etc., unless they do their jobs? Can that be Chaffetz's choice? Wolf-pack.com, so that it's not a choice. We make them actually represent us. Jefferson Smith says about the Ben Carson story, involuntary immigration, yeah, it's called human trafficking. Annie O'Neill says they were alternative immigrants. Like alternative facts, now we have alternative immigrants. And Jeremy Kohler hits on something that I think maybe JR mentioned in the production meeting we had. The scarier idea is that Carson actually understands, but thinks slaves were lucky that they were brought here of all places. There's some chance he actually thinks that. Anyway, I don't want to go any further into Ben Carson's brain. We might not be able to get out. Okay, $50 from Jose from Puerto Rico. That's for our journalism drive, tytnetwork.com/go. We're going to hire some great people. And we're going to do that when we reach 1.5 million. And every day I get a little bit more nervous about the reporters that we need to hire. I've got some great folks that are definitely coming in that batch. Let's make it happen. And $50 from Leanne in Washington. Thank you, guys. All right, now let's go on to the last story in the first hour. Okay. WikiLeaks with another giant revelation. This time they hacked the CIA and are revealing some of their most devastating programs. It's devastating to our privacy and perhaps to our health, as you'll see. Mediaite explains WikiLeaks released thousands of documents on Tuesday, claiming that they hold significant details about the CIA and their capabilities for hacking and cyber espionage. Well, that certainly is true. So what's in there? The documents contain information about various infiltration codes, cyber warfare strategies, and the ability to turn phones and TVs into recording devices. WikiLeaks said in a press release that they obtained this information from an isolated, high-security network at the CIA's Center for Cyber Intelligence. Man, those guys at the CIA gotta be pissed. They're supposed to be the guys who, guard all these secrets, and they bungle it into the WikiLeaks. And people are going to want some sort of accountability here, which of course the CIA does not want, and that is going to lead to more anger on their end. Now, why are they going to want accountability? Well, when we explain the details of what they can look into here, you're not going to be comfortable about it. The CIA, according to Mediaite, had created, in effect, its own NSA with an even less accountable and without publicly answering the questions as to whether such a massive budgetary spend on duplicating the capacities of a rival agency could be justified. So if you weren't already mad about the invasion of privacy, they also misspent your money and are now doing what the NSA is already doing, which is already, in not just my opinion, but the opinion of some judges, unconstitutional, but we all merrily go on anyway. So let's get to the details. Now we go to the New York Times. Among other disclosures that, if confirmed, would rock the technology world, the WikiLeaks release said that the CIA and allied intelligence services had managed to bypass encryption on popular phone and messaging services such as Signal, WhatsApp, and Telegram. According to the statement from WikiLeaks, government hackers can penetrate Android phones and collect audio and message traffic before encryption is applied. So oftentimes these companies will say, and that's great, they say, no, we won't turn over the records to the authorities. That, with warrants, they eventually oftentimes do. But if you're going on a fishing expedition, we're not going to allow that. Well, apparently the CIA has figured out how to get the information before it's encrypted. So whether it's a phone call, it's a text message you sent, or it was a message that you sent on one of those popular apps you thought was safe, not safe after all. it only gets worse and worse. One of the programs, codenamed Weeping Angel, uses Samsung smart televisions as covert listening devices. According to the WikiLeaks news release, even when it appears to be turned off, the television operates as a bug, recording conversations in the room and sending them over to the internet to a covert CIA server. So it goes through the internet to the CIA server. You don't have to be using it. It doesn't have to be on. It's a bug in all your homes if you've got a smart TV, let alone the things that they're capturing from your phone. So when people said this in the past, they'd say, oh, no, don't be ridiculous. That's just the stuff of fantasy and movies. Nope. It turns out they've been doing it all along. By the way, the New York Times talked to a former intelligence official who looked at the documents and said, they look authentic. They look exactly how we wrote them, we would write them. It's not 100% confirmation, and the CIA, of course, refuses to comment. But so far, nobody's made any loud declarations that they are not authentic. If anything, it appears to be the opposite. And by the way, on the Samsung TV, Samsung admits it. In their manual, in the fine print, back in 2015, if you look at it, it says, please be aware that if your spoken words include personal or other sensitive information, that information will be among the data captured and transmitted to a third party through your use of voice recognition. So it's not a conspiracy theory, it's in the manual. It's in the manual they gave you when they gave you the TV. But it's not just TVs, it's phones. It's also, and here's where it gets more disastrous, your cars. Now we go to Left Lane News. Now that's about driving, it's not about politics. They say the US Central Intelligence Agency's hacking division has allegedly explored vulnerabilities to vehicle systems. One document outlining a 2014 meeting for the Embedded Devices Branch lists vehicle systems, e.g. VSEP, as a potential mission area. The VSEP acronym is not identified, though it surfaces later in a note regarding QNX that says big player in VSEP. They explain all these terms. Basically, bottom line is, these are the things that are in your car that you talk to, Bluetooth, etc. But it doesn't just end there. First, let me give you the lesser of the problems, then I'll give you the worst problem. Less extreme applications for intelligence gathering might include eavesdropping via hands-free microphone or tracking of the vehicle's location, potentially utilizing modern vehicles' cellular modems for real-time monitoring. Now you might think, well, why is the CIA going to record a schlep like me? What do they care where I'm going? Well, unless you're a political opponent. Now, so far, we've had someone who was fighting to keep their immigrant parents in the country targeted by ICE. Right after she gave a political speech, she was arrested. Last night, Kaiser Khan, the father of the fallen soldier that spoke at the DNC against Trump, he said his visa was questioned, even though he's been a US citizen for 30 years. The Trump administration calls journalists the enemy of the state, enemy of the people. There's actually a story from a former intelligence official out today saying that the Trump administration is beginning to target journalists with the help of Russian intelligence. Now they don't need Russian intelligence. They could just turn to American intelligence. And they still don't get it. They're in charge of the government. So this is now all at their disposal. Okay. Now, by the way, it doesn't have to be something, if you're not political and you think, well, I'm a dentist, I'm an accountant, I'm a plumber, I don't really care about politics, they're not going to target me. Unless, of course, there's some dude who works in your neck of the woods who gets your information and wants to mess with you. He doesn't like you, or you slept with his wife, or he's sleeping with your wife. Now, all of a sudden, he's got your information. It is going to be an unbelievable mess. Okay. I haven't gotten to the worst part yet, and here's that part. WikiLeaks explains that this being able to infiltrate your car also would permit the CIA to engage in nearly undetectable assassinations. They will be able to take control of your car while you're in the car. Now, Left Lane News mentioned the case of Michael Hastings. They're not saying that the CIA did that. This memo is, by the way, from 2014. Hastings died in 2013, but if you don't remember, he was a journalist who challenged the military and the CIA, was working on a story on the CIA, and then had a mysterious crash where his car sped out of control and he died. Now, we don't know what happened there. There's not enough evidence. I don't think there was anywhere near enough investigation, but they mentioned it in the context of it is not impossible. In fact, again, like the TVs, we already knew this was possible, and they remind us. They say, former U.S. National Coordinator for Security, Infrastructure Protection, and Counterterrorism, Richard Clark, told the Huffington Post in 2013 that there is reason to believe intelligence agencies have developed the ability to remotely control certain vehicle systems and do some really highly destructive things. So here we are, guys, right in the middle of Big Brother. Now, WikiLeaks explains why they do these releases. They said the source in a statement set out policy questions that, quote, urgently need to be debated in public, including whether the CIA's hacking capabilities exceed its mandated powers and the problem of public oversight of the agency. Well, that I couldn't agree with more. Did you guys authorize this? Did we authorize this in a democracy? Did we tell the CIA to go ahead and basically wiretap all of us to gather all that information and to use it whenever it's convenient for them or convenient for the new people in power? Did we tell them that it's okay to listen to us through our phones, our TVs, our cars? Did we tell them it's okay to develop technologies that would allow them to control our cars when we're in them? I don't remember the American people authorizing any of that. And then when you ask for what was authorized, they go, oh, no, it's the CIA, you can't look into it. No. This is not yet an authoritarian government. It is supposed to be a democracy. Of course we can look into that. And the more information about it we have, the better. So I'm glad that we've at least got it from some source here. And by the way, the rest of the press, up and at 'em. You're not supposed to be just watchdogs of the Trump administration because you're in a fight with them. You're supposed to be watchdogs over the whole government. Do your job, get more of this information so we can make rational decisions in a democracy. I don't think the American people signed on for this. Young Turks. All right, back on the Young Turks. Let us all enjoy and bask in the presence of Anna Kasparian while we have her, because tomorrow is the day when women are not showing up to work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Let me be clear, though. It's a day where extremely privileged women have the ability to go out there and miss a day of work and protest and kind of show this country what it's like to have a day without women. Did you know that 2/3 of minimum wage earners in the United States are women?
I did not know.
So a lot of women, whether they're employed in paid labor or unpaid labor as homemakers, will not have the ability to do it. And I just want to really give them some recognition because, again, I do come from a privileged position. You're not going to fire me because I'm going to voice my political opinion tomorrow.
I give you privilege.
But we do obviously strike and march for them as well. So.
Yes, it's not just Anna. We're going to be missing, pretty much all of our daily producers. Okay, so Irina, our executive producer, and we'll talk more about this tomorrow. Jen Roofer, who is the daily producer who makes so much of the show happen, the editors, etc. Great idea. Way to go, libs.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. I've had several panicked male people who work here come up and go, should we kind of cancel the show? I mean, it's really hard to do it without the women.
Yeah, you should cancel the show.
Yeah, not gonna do it.
Unbearable.
No. I'll tell you real quick, guys, real quick. The reason we don't cancel the show is because, look, if we were Google, we'd make a bigger statement by turning off Google, and that would be a giant statement. But let's keep it real, we're not Google. And so I think we would have a bigger impact by actually covering it and covering the news that comes out of it than to just not do the show. Mm-hmm. We got to give a voice. That's our job. Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. Anyways, Anna will be at the protest tomorrow, so check that out in LA. Okay. Dropkick Kimmy, somewhat unfortunate Twitter handle, says, so did Samsung or any of these smart TV companies know this was happening? Now, we don't know if they knew the CIA was listening in on their smart TVs. We do know that they knew it was possible, that it could get intercepted by a third party.
How many videos do the CIA have, or intelligence communities, organizations have, of people masturbating? Probably a lot.
It must be endless.
Oh, it's so embarrassing.
It's what the Camp of the Saints.
It's natural.
Yeah, the Camp of the Saints described as a river of sperm. That's Bannon's favorite book. Anyway, no. By the way, Anna, that's such a great point. I'll tell you right now, I'll make a prediction. That is how one of the things they will do to their political opponents. They will start leaking videos of guys, not women, because they'd be like, women masturbating, that's kind of hot, whatever, nobody cares, it's not embarrassing. Okay, but of guys masturbating, and then they'll go like basic, like, ha ha, every guy does it, but then they'll get to shame people. By the way, I know that not because I'm particularly clever, it's because it's partly what Putin and Erdogan do. Mm-hmm. They capture you having sex, doing anything sexual, and if you're super boring and you don't have any kind of wrong sex, then they catch you masturbating, right? And just go, ha ha.
Speaking of which, I love how my mind immediately went to masturbating instead of sex. Like plenty of people have sex in the privacy of their own home, but I guess you're right.
No, you know why? Because it's about TVs and phones and stuff.
Yeah.
Where you look at images, where you look at videos.
That's right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, they're going to do that ASAP.
Look at this guy.
Come on, that was pretty clever. Anyways.
It was good.
All right, I want to thank Robin from New York, $27 towards journalism. Thank you, Robin. We're going to expose all this stuff. We're going to try to catch up to WikiLeaks. They have their own way. We have our own ways. And keep the government accountable. $50 from Susan in California. So that's all at tytnetwork.com/go to contribute. And then you could be proud of the work of the journalists forever. And I think that they've done some terrific work so far, and we get a lot more where that came from.
Yes.
All right, what's up?
All right. So Jen covered a little bit of the Obamacare replacement in hour one, but there are other components I want to cover here in hour two, so let's get started with that. The GOP Obamacare replacement would do one thing, and it's a huge glaring difference between the current healthcare system that we have now and the system that they would want. It would essentially defund Planned Parenthood by preventing Medicaid reimbursements from going to these clinics. Now, that's a huge portion of how Planned Parenthood is funded. And keep in mind that this is government money, taxpayer money, that is already forbidden from being used toward abortion services. The Medicaid reimbursements that Planned Parenthood gets can only be used for other medical services that they provide, preventative screenings and things like that. Now, under this Republican plan, it would bar Planned Parenthood from receiving hundreds of millions of dollars in federal Medicaid reimbursements, the majority of the organization's federal funding. Low-income women will be hit especially hard, but it's important to mention that Planned Parenthood patients may be affected if clinics are forced to close as a result of budget cuts. So understand, usually it's low-income individuals who receive Medicaid, so it would initially impact them if they're relying on Planned Parenthood for preventative care. But Planned Parenthood would lose so much funding that it would essentially shut down Planned Parenthood in the long run, affecting anyone who relies on Planned Parenthood.
This is the ACORN strategy. So what they did to ACORN was, there was a group that helped poor people with legal help, employment help, and voting. So they didn't like the giant multinational corporations who are donors to the Republican Party, didn't like poor people who helped with legal and employment issues and fighting for higher wages, and they definitely didn't like them voting. So they targeted ACORN, and ACORN's budget was not entirely from the government, but it had received some government help to be able to help those who were in need. Once they took the government funding away, it was still a big enough percentage of their budget that the whole thing went under. Mm-hmm. So they went bankrupt, and now those people are not getting the help at all. And of course, the incredibly rich donors think, great and complete victory. So that's what they'd like to do to Planned Parenthood next.
That's right. And so the Planned Parenthood Medicaid component of this legislation, I think, is the most destructive, but tearing down Planned Parenthood includes a three-pronged approach. So there's the Medicaid part of it, and then there's also how Republicans want to get in between you and your private insurer. So let's get to that part. So this proposal threatens to dismantle the entire private insurance market for abortion coverage, not just public funding for abortion providers. If a woman wants a health insurance plan that will cover abortion, she and possibly her employer won't be able to use tax credits to buy it under this bill. Now remember, people already get tax credits in order to afford health care, and under this Republican plan, it would rely solely on tax credits to help those with lower incomes to afford health insurance. But those tax credits could not be used for private insurance if that private insurance covers abortion services. It's insane. So that's the second part of what they plan on doing to dismantle Planned Parenthood.
Well, look, if you are getting regular insurance and your employer doesn't provide it, or you don't normally get it because they needed tax credits to be able to make it work, are you going to think ahead? I don't know that I would. I'm not sure how many people would. Hey, let me read through all this. Oh, it doesn't cover abortion because of this new law. So I have to go find another insurance to cover just abortion, or another kind of insurance that also covers abortion. It might be more expensive. I have to do a lot more research. I have to know that ahead of time, just in case I get pregnant and it was, hey, maybe I get raped, or maybe it's it was just the baby's not healthy, but not healthy.
Maybe that pregnancy puts my life at risk, right? Republicans are always arguing. I know. Look, Republicans are always arguing in terms of what liberals would like with healthcare. That liberals, they want to get in between you and your doctor. They want to make medical decisions for you. Don't you want to do what you think is best with your own body and your own life? But when it comes to issues like this, right? Republicans love controlling what you can do. They love getting in between you and your doctor, or you and your insurance company. What business is it of theirs where you put your money in terms of a private insurance company and what that private insurance company covers? Look, this is a way of ensuring that private insurance companies don't offer any protection or coverage for abortion. Because think about it, if people think that it's too much of a hassle or too expensive to buy private insurance that covers abortion, then people are not going to buy it and insurance companies are not going to cover it. And so that's another way of getting rid of coverage for abortions, okay? That's all it's about. And just quickly going back to the Medicaid thing. Either conservatives just refuse to acknowledge this, or they're just really dumb, okay? But here's the reality. Federal money is not allowed to be used toward abortion, okay? Medicaid money, not allowed to be used on abortions. You know why? In 1976, literally decades ago, the Hyde Amendment passed, okay? By a dude, a congressman with the last name Hyde, who, by the way, had a extramarital affair and then hypocritically wanted to impeach Bill Clinton for his affair. But nonetheless, he passed the Hyde Amendment. He sponsored it, it passed. It prevents any federal funding from going toward abortion, okay, unless the woman's life is in danger or she's a victim of incest or rape. So why are they constantly attacking Planned Parenthood? Planned Parenthood doesn't use your precious taxpayer money on abortions. It just doesn't. And again, either you refuse to acknowledge it, or you just keep hearing this over and over again and you're too dumb to get it through your mind.
Okay, so when they say Obamacare gets between you and your doctor and they hate that, they mean for guys.
Yeah.
They don't mean for women. For women, that's the central part of their plank is to get between you and your doctor. I'm not, like, you ask a right winger, you ask a Republican, they can't deny it. They would probably happily concede it. Yeah, we don't want you to make decisions with your own body. We are not for choice. We are against choice. They call themselves pro-life. They say, no, if you're impregnated, it's over. You no longer control your own body. As a representative of the government will step between you and your doctor and prevent your choice. And if you're doing that and you have the right to do that as an American, that frustrates them. They need to control your body. They need it. They need it because they're obsessed with big government and they love big government and they want to lord their morality over you. If they did this with anything else, it would be so outrageous if they said, no, we're not going to cover cancer. From now on, you're not going to, any plan that covers cancer doesn't get a tax credit. So most of the plans will not cover cancer. So hey, you should have thought ahead. And thought, hey, maybe I'll get cancer, and you should have gotten a special rider for it and paid a lot more money. So what? That's your problem, not my problem, all you cancer people. But instead of doing that, they're doing something I would argue is a little worse because they're saying for 51% of the population, for a majority of the population, no, if you're a guy, we're not gonna get between you and your doctor, we don't care and you're fine. But if you're a woman, okay, then you gotta go and do all this stuff and it only applies to you and I don't give a damn. No, I do give a damn. I want to control you.
Yeah.
I want to control your body because I love big government and I believe in an authoritarian form of government where the politicians' morality, so-called morality, is more important than the citizens' view of their own morality.
So you're right in that this impacts women a great deal, but one thing that I want everyone to take into consideration is that Planned Parenthood is not, an organization that's solely utilized by women. They provide preventative care for men as well. They check for prostate cancer. They do annual physicals. If you are low income, they will do it for free. If you are able to get Medicaid reimbursements, they'll get reimbursed that way. They do cancer screenings. They do tetanus shots. They do vaccines. I mean, there are so many services that poor people rely on or use Planned Parenthood for. And this is going to have such a negative impact on all those people, right? This is an insane statistic that I didn't even know. So in 2015, 78% of people who went to Planned Parenthood were either at or below 150% of the federal poverty line. These are the most disadvantaged individuals who need health care, and they rely on Planned Parenthood for that. And just because a bunch of conservatives refuse to acknowledge the fact that their taxpayer money doesn't go toward abortion, we're probably gonna dismantle this, and we're probably gonna take what little health care these individuals have available away from them.
You tell the Republicans that and they're like, oh, great, who cares anyway? The poor people. When's the last time a poor person wrote me a campaign check? You know what I'm saying?
How many of these poor people have cell phones? How many of these poor people have refrigerators?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, hey, you shouldn't have gotten a refrigerator and you should have eaten out of a dumpster. By the way, Rush Limbaugh once literally said that. Why don't they just eat out of dumpsters? So, if you're not a rich Republican donor and you're not a male, idiot, you should have never voted for us. As Chaffetz said today about the healthcare bill, hey, actions have consequences. Buyer beware.
So mad. Anyway.
By the way, the Bible is pro-abortion, read Numbers. Yeah. And also, by the way, if you're a Republican, just say it, just admit it. You love big government. You love a giant military. You love all those wars we started. You love giving money to defense contractors who waste it more than anyone else. You love getting between us and our doctors. Just say it. What are you ashamed of? Just say it. Just own up to it. You love big government. Okay.
All right. Another component of the GOP health plan focuses on Medicaid and how the government can prevent wasting money on Medicaid, or at least saving money when it comes to Medicaid. Now, apparently 6 pages of the 60-page legislation is devoted to lottery winners and preventing them from abusing the system. 6 pages. So 10% of this legislation is dedicated to lottery winners, because there are a lot of lottery winners running around, trying to take advantage of Medicaid.
So let me begin to break it down, because this makes me so mad. Why mad? I mean, you should be amused, right? Like, how many lottery winners are there in the country? Like 12, 28, whatever. Like, why would you bother even writing this in, let alone devoting 10% of your stupid plan to these 28 lottery winners in the country? The reason I'm mad about it is because they hate poor people, and this is how they view them, right? Yep. They're all welfare queens, they're all bums, and they're all cheats.
They're all cheats. They're all eating lobster dinners with the welfare checks that they're receiving, and they're all driving BMWs. I hear this line of reasoning or thinking all the time, and it's so misguided and it's so wrong. But in this case, I mean, think about it. That's what's in their mind floating around, like, oh my God, there's this prevalence of lottery winners taking advantage of Medicaid. We gotta do something about it. We have to dedicate 1/10 of our legislation to lottery winners cheating the Medicaid system.
Because it's about demagoguery. They want you to hate poor people. They put that in there on purpose so that they say, oh, you know how they are. They'll get the lottery and they'll cheat on Medicaid anyway. By the way, it's also a great case of projection, because they cheat all the time. They do it as a regular course. They do tax evasion. They just hide their money in the Cayman Islands. They do all this stuff. Trump, he hasn't paid taxes in 18, 19 years. They cheat all the time and they cut the IRS so you can't catch the tax cheats. So they assume you'll do it too. But now some of you might be wondering, wait a minute, the lottery winners aren't poor. They're now rich. But you see, not in the view of these rich donors, because the lottery winners are not elites. They're just some poor average schmuck who got lucky. But when Trump or the Koch brothers inherit 200 million, Trump did 400 million, the Koch brothers did.
They're not lucky.
They didn't get lucky. It wasn't a lottery. It wasn't, we earned your bootstraps. Hey man, self-individualism, all that stuff, right? Yeah, so for the elites, if you're living in the middle of Arkansas or Oregon or wherever you might be and you won a lottery, that doesn't count. Oh yeah, you're probably gonna wanna cheat on Medicaid because you were originally poor and hence less than us. It's revolting.
All right, let's move on to some other news, especially some privacy-related news that's super interesting. More and more people are turning their homes into so-called smart homes, where they're buying technology that helps them turn lights on simply by talking instead of having to flip a switch. Well, that could actually have an impact on your privacy, and if you ever get prosecuted for a crime, prosecutors could come after data that's collected by these devices. Case in point, an Arkansas man by the name of James Bates, who is being tried for murder. Now, apparently he found a man floating in his bathtub, called the police and told them that it must have been some sort of accident, he must have drowned. Prosecutors are accusing him of murder, saying that he strangled the man and then drowned him in the bathtub. Now, we don't know what the reality is, and prosecutors want more evidence. So since they realize that he has the Echo system that of course is owned by Amazon, well, they can contact Amazon and get the data that they need. They specifically wanted recordings from his home. So let me give you more details on that. Now, prosecutors used Bates' smart home against him in course, citing information from a smart water meter to argue that someone was using a garden hose to clear blood off the patio. They also attempted to force Amazon to hand over information gathered from Bates's Echo Smart speaker, arguing that it could have made recordings that would shed light on what happened that night. Now, interestingly enough, Amazon was contacted by these prosecutors 2 separate times, and they said, no, we will give you his purchase history, but we will not give you these recordings, and they cited the First Amendment as a way of protecting themselves against giving this information to prosecutors. However, the way that this all ended up is the suspect, or at least the defendant, decided to just give the prosecutors access to these recordings so Amazon didn't have to deal with it anymore. But I think it would have been interesting to see how it would play out if Amazon continued to resist and the defendant continued to resist, because there is a privacy situation here.
Giant privacy one. I'm 100% on Amazon's side. Let me give you more details. So if you're wondering, is the Echo always on? Well, yes and no. So there's a story about WikiLeaks and the CIA in today's news, not related to this, that I'll tell you about in a second, that is very relevant to this. But in this case, The Guardian explains, despite Echo's always on microphones, the majority of recordings it makes are not transmitted to Amazon. Only recordings made after the device hears its wake word, such as Alexa, Echo, or computer, are transmitted that way. Now that's the way it's supposed to work, but the reason prosecutors wanted the recordings anyways, because oftentimes Echo confuses something you said or didn't say, any sound, for Alexa, Echo, or computer, and turns on and starts to send it to Amazon, okay? Now it's always on anyway. The question is it sending it to Amazon? Now the third question that we get from an unrelated story in the news today is WikiLeaks reveals that CIA has been listening in on us through our phones, our cars, and our TVs. And they're using that whether the TV is on or not on. It's basically a bug in all of our homes if you own a smart TV and those other devices. And they found a way, in the case of the phones, to capture the text messages or the voice recordings before the companies even encrypt them. So we're all surrounded by this technology that's recording at all times. So in this particular case, do I want to defend this guy? No, look, that's why I'm not a defense lawyer. His excuse sounds preposterous. Like, oh, maybe a guy happened to come into my house, slip, fall into a body of water in my bathtub. Yeah, that happens all the time. Right? I mean, they'll have to go to court and figure out what actually happened. Doesn't seem like a very convincing defense, if you ask me. But it's not just about him, it's about all of us. I don't want them stealing our privacy. That's another kind of crime. And they're doing it on a mass scale. I mean, look at what in this story, the smart water meter. They say it's to help you, but it's measuring how much water you use in every case, and then they use that as wildly speculative evidence against you in a court of law.
That's right. And I think that the biggest problem here is that technology continues to advance, yet we don't have the necessary court rulings, precedent, or at least laws in place to protect our privacy as these, different technologies get developed. And so I don't know, do I have much faith in Congress today when it comes to this issue? Not really. And so I would have liked to see how this would have played out if the courts had to get involved and decide the constitutionality of Amazon being forced to hand over this type of data.
Yeah, and I vote no. And it's painful in situations that are murder cases, I understand that. But there are many other ways to prove murder cases. We used to be able to prove murder cases without wiretapping the entire country before. So it's a shortcut, but that destroys all of our privacy. I vote no. It's unacceptable that they're recording everything that we're doing here. So this is just the beginning. Remember, in the old days, in order to get listen in on somebody and to violate their privacy, that was considered a big deal. And you need to get a warrant. A court you'd have to go to court and show you have a ton of evidence that this guy likely did it. You already have that evidence so that you can get more evidence through a wiretap, right? Now they're wiretapping all of us without any warrants, which by the way is also unconstitutional.
Also, think about it in these terms. So we have various red states here that allow you to shoot someone simply because they came onto your property, right? Castle doctrine, castle laws, things like that. And so in this case, we're essentially allowing the government to invade our homes willy-nilly.
Yeah, if you don't like big government just became Big Brother. So if you're a conservative, a libertarian, liberal, it doesn't matter. Nobody should be in favor of this.
Agreed. Should we take a break? Let's take a break.
Yeah, because also what we do in life echoes in eternity.
We'll be back.
All right, back on the Young Turks. Annie says, I love Anna and Cenk's passion, but mostly how you actually speak for the people. Thank you, Annie. Optimist Prime says, on me deciding to do the show tomorrow, Cenk, fair call. I preemptively pardon you, if only to highlight how hard it would be to do the show without the womans.
Good reference.
Yes, agreed on many fronts. Mira says, I wonder how many of these pro-life politicians have forced their mistresses to have abortions. Well, we have the answer to that on at least one occasion. Desjardins in Tennessee had his mistress have 2 abortions and his wife 1, or his wife 2 abortions and his mistress 1. It's hard to keep track. But yeah, and when they said, you claim to be a pro-life politician to family values, he said, yeah, but we really need to get abortions.
Yeah, no.
Oh, I see.
So Congressman Hyde, who authored the Hyde Amendment, as I mentioned during that story, he had a 4-year affair. And so when he was spearheading the impeachment process for Bill Clinton, right? And when he was asked, like, aren't you a hypocrite? You had an affair. He was like, well, I mean, it ended when I was 45 years old, youthful indiscretion. You're fucking 45 years old, okay? You're not like 19 and you cheated on your high school sweetheart. Anyway, it's this inability to empathize with other people, right? They think that they are above everyone else and the rules do not apply to them. They are exceptional individuals and that's that, right? So-
Look, it goes on. The other guys that were prosecuting him, Newt Gingrich was having an affair at the time. Bob Livingston having an affair at the time. They're unbelievable hypocrites. Strom Thurmond ran on a segregationist ticket. Whites and blacks should not mix. He ran for president on the segregationist ticket. He dies, we find out he's got a black daughter because had a black mistress all the time.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Look,
Okay.
we're humans, okay? And sometimes we cannot deny the temptations of the flesh. And so let's be a little less judgmental and stop trying to get involved in everyone's personal lives.
But Nefarious Contreras says poor people are not really people to this administration. So, and that's part of the problem that they have with empathy. Okay, guys, let me tell you the members of the day: Adam Fernie and Lucy Pedrana. You guys rock the world. So membership gets you the whole 2-hour show, ad-free, anytime you want, on demand. That's pretty cool. So you don't have to catch it live. You don't have to catch it in bits and pieces. It also gets you members-only content. What should we do today? Deep State or my latest drug shenanigans?
Drug shenanigans.
Shenanigans in the postgame for the members only. tytnetwork.com/join. And then we have tytnetwork.com/go. That's to raise money for journalism. And we're at 1.356 there. Can I see 1.357? Anyway, also today, TYT Classics, which is a whole nother show on the network where we look at old clips of what we did. And I love that show.
TYT Classics?
I do.
Oh, it's bananas. We have a TYT Classics today, and we're taking it real old school, okay? We're going to show you a funny Bush video.
Oh, great, great. And our reaction to it. Finally, tomorrow we'll have old school, and I have it on good authority that the commander of the armies of the East will join the old school for the first time.
Aaron
Weissach.
He's here?
Oh, my bad. Not here tomorrow. Next week. Next week.
I got so excited. I'm like,
but
Aaron's
he is. He's going to be here next week.
I love Aaron.
The commander of the armies of the East.
He's so great.
On old school. So become a member today. tytnetwork.com/join. All right, what's next?
All right. A new study looks into the number of exonerations here in the United States and what percentage of people who get exonerated. These are individuals who are wrongfully convicted and then later released due to DNA evidence. What percentage of them are black versus white? Well, I'm sure you know the answer to that, but the statistics are pretty insane. So a new report from the National Registry of Exonerations, a joint project between the University of California, Irvine, University of Michigan Law School, and Michigan State University College of Law, shows that black people are more likely to be wrongfully convicted than white people and are also likely to spend longer in prison before being exonerated for their crimes. Now, this is the statistic that I guess shouldn't have shocked me, but it did because the numbers are startling. While black people represent 13% of the US population, they represent a whopping 47% of the 1,900 exonerations in the registry. So they looked at 3 specific crimes in their analysis, the researchers did. They looked at murder, they looked at rape, and also drug crimes. And so these are people who have been exonerated, convicted, and then exonerated of all 3 crimes, right? Here are the numbers. Innocent blacks are 7 times more likely to be convicted of murder than innocent white people. This was partly because homicide rates among black people are higher than among white people, and innocent black people are therefore more likely to get suspected and convicted of murder. So this basically has to do with certain biases. If you see that black people are more likely to get convicted for murder, well, then you're more likely to assume that a black person is a suspect, and that person is more likely to get tried, and then the biases in the trial system likely will get that person wrongfully convicted.
And look, sometimes in some of these categories, blacks are convicted at higher rates and are in prison at higher rates because of selective enforcement. So drugs is a perfect example of that. Whites and blacks do drugs at the same rates, but as you're about to, well, first of all, we know that blacks are put in prison at 4 times the rate of whites, even though they do it at the same rate. Now, part of the reason for that is there's more law enforcement in poorer neighborhoods. Blacks tend to live on average in more poor neighborhoods, so there's cops everywhere. Whereas in your suburbs where people are doing either pot or coke or whatever they're doing, or hillbilly heroin, whatever it might be, there aren't as many cops and they're not constantly trying to fill quotas for arrests, etc. And then there are assumptions and stereotypes.
Yes.
And so selective enforcement makes all the difference. So that is in the people arrested and put in jail. Now, wait till you see the ones that are done wrong and how much that is disparate for blacks. And it just told you the murder ones, but let's go over the other two.
So real quick, before we leave the topic of murder, murder cases where a black defendant was wrongfully convicted were 22% more likely to involve police misconduct than those involving white defendants. This is not a comment, this is not opinion, these are facts based on analysis of people who were wrongfully convicted and the forces at play behind that wrongful conviction.
Yeah, it's not like the researchers looked at him and was like, I think the cop did the wrong thing there. No, it was a court case where the guy was let go and the state says, sorry, we were wrong, because usually of DNA evidence, but in some cases, police misconduct. We found that there was police misconduct. We're now letting you out of jail. Yeah. So that's why it is an absolute fact. So if you are a white person in America who did not have the police ever abuse you or treat you wrong, you're probably wondering, I don't get it. The cops protect you. Why don't they like the cops? Why don't they trust the cops? Because that is not their experience.
And also,
22% of the cases were because the police decided I'm gonna go get this guy, even though he's innocent.
And for white individuals who don't understand this and haven't experienced it, that is exactly what, dare I say it, what white privilege is, right? That doesn't mean that you're a bad person. That just means that there are certain obstacles that you haven't had to deal with, certain biases that you didn't have to deal with, right? You've gotten the benefit of the doubt. Doesn't mean you're a bad person, doesn't mean you didn't earn everything that you have in your life. It just means that you were treated a little fairer by the system.
It doesn't mean you're a millionaire and driving around Bentleys. You could be dirt poor and still not get as mistreated as African Americans, not get convicted wrongly as much as African Americans. It's a privilege that's invisible. You can't even see it because the cop doesn't come and crack you over the skull and throw you in jail. One of the guys that they talk about, 15 years for rape, and he didn't do it. He didn't do it. And so then they're like, oops, sorry, wrong guy. DNA proved you're innocent and it's the other guy. You're out of jail, but we already destroyed your life. So it's a weird thing to call that privilege that didn't happen to you. But it is. I mean, look at the numbers. So again, murder numbers, very stark.
So let's go to
7 times more likely to be convicted of murder wrongly if you're black.
Yes. So let's now move on to the issue of sexual assault and rape. According to the analysis, black people serving time for sexual assault are 3.5 times more likely to be innocent than white defendants that have been convicted of sexual assault. The bulk of the racial disparities in sexual assault convictions can be explained by white victims who mistakenly identify black assailants. So this is very important because I think a lot of times people put a lot of weight behind witness testimony or a witness identifying the suspect. But in a lot of cases, especially if the victim was a white person, they will misidentify the suspect.
No, it's actually, and I've read different studies about this. It's if the person is of a different race. So black people have almost as much trouble telling white people apart as white people have of telling black people apart, also Asians, etc. So when it's two different races, they just haven't been acclimated enough to different faces of those races because they don't live with them enough, etc. So they will make mistakes at a much higher percentage. And so you think, oh, it's a witness, it must be true. Not necessarily the case, especially the victim in a sexual assault, how could they not know? But the DNA exonerated them in all these cases. No, in a lot of cases, it is mistaken identity. Look, that is what they could prove, and that's why they wrote that. So now this is my opinion. Look, I think stereotypes also make a big difference here. Because what are the ugly stereotypes they have said about black people for all this time? They're violent, and they will rape your woman. I mean, that goes all the way back to The Birth of a Nation, the first long feature film ever made, where there's a white person dressed up in blackface going around raping white women. I mean, that is a stereotype almost as old as America itself. And so when you have these stereotypes built in the back of our heads, is it that surprising that blacks get convicted of murder 7 times more wrongly than whites and 3.5 times more in sexual assault cases? Then you've got drugs.
Yes.
And drugs are even worse in this case.
So keep in mind that when it comes to certain types of drugs like marijuana, and we've stated this on the show repeatedly, blacks and whites use marijuana at similar rates, but blacks are more likely to get arrested and convicted for possession of marijuana, 4 times more likely. Now, according to this analysis, when it comes to drug crimes, innocent blacks were 12 times more likely to be convicted than innocent whites.
So not only are they targeted more, but they are even more disproportionately the victims of injustice. And so when they bring that issue up, or we bring that issue up, it's not a matter of asking to be a victim. Nobody asks to get put in jail and wrongly convicted of either selling drugs or committing rape or committing murder and losing a big chunk of their lives. It wasn't some sort of grand strategy to have a victim complex. They were actually victimized, and it was actual significant injustice at a different rate than other races in this country. So let's just acknowledge it so that if we're decent human beings, we could actually work towards a solution.
All right, another prison story that is amazing. So let's go to that. The Maine State Prison has decided to end a policy that forced female visitors to take their bras off if they wanted to see an inmate. Yes, that was an actual policy that they had, and they reversed it after they got enough complaints about it. Now, apparently they would do so because they were worried that women were hiding something in their bras. If they would go through the metal detector and it would beep, well, then they were thinking, okay, these women are probably hiding something contraband, who knows what it is. So a number of women were complaining about this, one of which was Stacy Venable. She said, there's a line I don't cross. It's called integrity. I'm not taking my bra off to go into an all-male prison. Another woman says, it's noticeable. You're exposed and you're in a room with sex offenders and pedophiles. It's embarrassing and it's scary. Now, the incredible thing about this is that less than a dozen women, half a dozen women came forward and they complained about it. And the commissioner of the prison, Joseph Fitzpatrick, realized that, yeah, this is a crazy policy, and he did decide to reverse it. He says, part of the way you change culture in an organization is you set the tone, lead by example, and you address things. Adding that while the prison can't sacrifice safety, it can ensure it in a way that balances that objective with human decency and respect. I just want to give Fitzpatrick all the credit in the world, because it's not like this was a huge national headline and there was all this negative PR and people were attacking him. Half a dozen women complained about it, and he's like, yeah, this is actually pretty crazy. We're violating these innocent women who just want to visit these inmates.
So two things about this. One is, sometimes there's a dual purpose. One is you've got some veneer of a real reason to do it. Well, it could be metal lining in a bra, or they could sneak stuff into a bra. And then there's the real reason, which is we want to see them without their bras. Or maybe they're both real, but you can't discount one of them. Like, for example, when we were doing wiretapping in Iraq, and the NSA and the CIA told us, don't worry, it's just to catch terrorists. And it turns out, no, we were spying on our own troops and listening on their phone sex calls. Yes, it was probably the original reason was to actually catch terrorists, but when you let human beings run a program, they're obsessed with sex and they're gonna listen on your phone sex calls. So, and in this case, it is going to be, like they said, embarrassing, and there's gonna be guys who are leering, and not just the prisoners, but probably some of the guards too, because they're all human. So now the second part of this is that there are some lines we shouldn't cross, even if it rests a certain outcome that it's not great. So it's not great to have contraband snuck into prisons. That sucks. I get it. I know why you want to fight that. But I've seen the movies. It turns out you can actually sneak it in other orifices of your body.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do before everybody comes in with women? You're going to inspect in that way. And by the way, for women and men, a lot of times it's in the anus.
Is that how you would inspect, Cenk? You would inspect like this?
I'm just saying, I've seen German porn. Okay. And so for men and women, another direction, I mean, you could do that. I'm saying, hey, I've got contraband coming in this prison. By any means necessary, I got to make sure that we do that. No, of course not. So that there are some lines you shouldn't cross.
Right. Look, I think that it's in everyone's best interest to provide an environment that promotes safety, right? And so in this case, they want to make sure everyone's safe, whatever it is. But don't be so willing to give up your privacy and some of your freedoms in the name of safety, right? We've already done that when it comes to air travel, for instance. And by the way, the TSA is now pushing for advanced pat-downs as a universal method of screening people.
No,
so
I
that's
vote
something
no.
that's something that you should keep in mind. And the way that politicians or public figures try to garner support for that type of stuff is by scaring you and making you think like, we're doing it for your protection, we're doing it to protect you. But no, they're doing it to violate you and take away your privacy. And so don't let your privacy go so easily. In this case, think about how egregious this is. Think about how crazy it is to have a bunch of male guards tell you that you have to take your underwear off before you go in to see a loved one.
Yeah, so look guys, on the advanced pat-downs, they are very invasive. Now I travel all the time. I don't want a plane blowing up. I'm in the plane, right? So I've got every incentive in the world to make sure that they're doing everything they can for safety. But checking everybody's crotch with the back of your hand is way too far, way too far. No, I vote no. There's got to be some bounds of reason. I mean, Anna and I both have had at different times advanced pat-downs. They're not a pleasant experience.
Yeah.
To inflict everyone with that. And by the way, the other thing it does is it's a giant invitation to pervs.
Of course,
like the Sandusky's of the world who would go and find powerless children and they target them while pretending to help them. When you say, hey, you're gonna get to feel everybody's crotch at the airport, who do you think is gonna show up and apply, right? So I definitely know, and I'm glad they got rid of this.
Yes.
We're for dignity. That's why we have graphics like this.
I like stared right at it because there's a screen to my right, and it didn't even like register because her breasts are so nice that I was just staring at her breasts.
We're for human dignity, okay? This is by choice. We're for things that are against choice. Okay, all right.
We gotta go.
We gotta go. All right, what happened the last time I got high? They are literally trips. So you're gonna wanna take that trip with me. What did I say to the ocean and why?
Vaping is getting uber popular because a lot of people think it's healthier than smoking.
Yeah, because we're not sucking in burning flames.
Yeah, you're not. But does that mean it's healthier?
Yes.
You're exactly right. Well, kinda. Not really. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. Most people smoke cigarettes to ingest the chemical nicotine because they're addicted to it. Some people smoke cigarettes to de-stress or look cool, but mostly it's just because they're addicted. Anyway, the nicotine is released by burning tobacco, and the nicotine acts like caffeine and makes you more alert, and it releases dopamine to lift your mood. But the problem with smoking cigarettes is that the research shows that, well, they kill you. The smoke itself sends partially combusted chemicals into your body and puts tar in your lungs, and it also blackens teeth and it smells gross.
And cancer. Don't forget the cancer.
Yeah, that. So the thing with vaping is that it doesn't burn tobacco like cigarettes. It heats the tobacco to a controlled temperature, so there's much less smoke. And it often uses a liquid solution of water, nicotine, a base, and flavorings.
So less smoke means vaping is less bad?
Generally speaking, studies from the UK and Europe, links in the description as always, suggest that vaping is over 90% healthier than smoking. But the thing is, there's other factors to consider. With vaping, manufacturers are now introducing new things that aren't present in cigarettes, like propylene glycol. Propylene glycol isn't in cigarettes, but it is in vaping fluid. It's used as a base to dilute the nicotine and help it vaporize consistently. But it also can cause irritation to the eyes and lungs. And flavorings, which mean you can make vaping fluid in all sorts of new flavors like green apple and Coca-Cola and cinnamon. But getting these flavors means using chemicals like diacetyl and cinnamonaldehyde. Both aren't great if inhaled in large doses. So which flavors are safe to vape? Well, we haven't had a chance to study them all yet because so many new flavors are coming onto the market, so we're not exactly sure. It's potentially risky. And because we haven't had very long to study vaping, the early research is often conflicting. For example, this year, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, probably one of the most reliable science sources in the whole world, profiled 3 studies that suggest vaping may actually be worse than smoking. One study looked at the DNA of smokers versus the DNA of vapors. They looked at almost 600 genes that are known to protect our body, fight infection, and ward off cancer. In smokers, 53 of these genes were depressed, which is one of the reasons why smokers are more prone to cancer. Their cancer-fighting genes were turned off. But in people who vape, it was 358 genes that were affected. So at a genetic level, maybe vaping could be more damaging than cigarettes. A second study in mice showed vapors led to hyperactivity, and scientists are exploring the connection between vaping and mental illness. A third study of mice showed far lower sperm counts in the mice who had been exposed to vapors from e-cigarettes. These are just links that have been observed. They've only been established by correlation, not causation, and the studies are brand new, so we haven't had a chance to reproduce them.
So to vape?
Or not to vape?
Well, I guess it's up to you what your risk tolerance is. The best science we have available suggests vaping is definitely more dangerous than not smoking at all. So if you're a non-smoker who buys like paraben-free toothpaste and GMO-free food because you're worried they have freaky chemicals that haven't been tested enough, then you definitely shouldn't be vaping. But if you crave delicious, delicious nicotine and you're looking for a healthier alternative to smoking, then switching to e-cigarettes might be an option to consider. Maybe.
Hi everyone, I'm Jade Lovell, resident science nerd on the Young Turks network. You're watching SciQ and we know you don't want to miss an episode, so please click the subscribe button down below.
Hey guys, we got to 10,000 subs! Yes, sucked intro! Thank you for being our subs, we love you guys! And so to celebrate in true SciQ style, let's bust 5 science myths in less than 5 minutes.
Myth number 1, is urine sterile and can you drink it? Well, despite this awesome scene from Fight Club, urine is not sterile. Normal, healthy people will have a colony of bacteria hanging out in their bladder. The myth comes from your urine test for urinary tract infections. If you get a negative on your UTI test, it doesn't mean that you actually tested negative for bacteria. It just means your bacteria levels are below the threshold for an infection. But since the amount of bacteria in healthy human urine is pretty low, you could drink it. What? It's iced tea. Milk is good for your bone. Okay, let's get one thing straight. The food pyramid is bunk. It's a lie. It was designed by companies with corporate interests in what gets put in your shopping trolley, like the dairy industry. Conventional wisdom says that dairy products help build strong bones by providing calcium. But milk is just one of many, many sources of calcium. Dark leafy green vegetables and some types of legumes are some of the other sources. And there's some important reasons why milk might not be the best source for everyone. The truth is that the bioavailability of calcium in milk isn't even that high. And there's other factors like exercise and protein and vitamin D intake that are far more important for bone health. Myth 3, brain cells can't regenerate. Many people think that we're born with all the brain cells we're ever going to have, or all the neurons we're ever going to have. And once they're gone for good. But science shows brain cells can regrow. Researchers at Cornell University have demonstrated that cells from the hippocampus, the part of your brain essential for learning and memory, can regenerate in a laboratory dish. Now there's something to toast to. Myth number 4, there's no gravity in space. Yale researchers have found that yes, there is actually gravity in space and there's lots of it. And it's true that as you travel further away from the Earth, its gravitational pull weakens. However, the pull fades away pretty slowly and the gravity never fully goes away. Gravity is everywhere in space. The objects that are in space are continuously falling towards a galactic center. Now you might be thinking, how did astronauts float about while they're in space? Well, these astronauts are in the midst of an orbit around the Earth, so they're not experiencing no gravity or they would fly off into space. They're actually experiencing a ton of gravity, but they don't have anything in their tracks to stop them. This concept is known as free falling, and it's why you get the feeling of weightlessness when you're in outer space. So although a penny is made out of hard copper, it's extremely difficult for a penny to transform into a deadly weapon. Even if it is tossed off a building as high as the Empire State Building, a penny is far too flat and small in size to kill you, and on its way down to the ground, it's buffered by far too many air particles. Plus, it reaches terminal velocity, which means it can't go any faster. It's the end of the acceleration. So it's not like it gets faster and faster as it drops. It reaches a certain speed and then that's as fast as it's going to get. So because of all this air resistance and because of terminal velocity, the penny would actually just drift to the ground like an autumn leaf. Lewis Bloomfield, a physicist at the University of Virginia, says that if you happened to be walking on the sidewalk at the time of the penny's descent and the penny did end up hitting you, it would feel kind of like someone lightly flicked you on the head. So now it's back to you guys. Which myth did you think was real? I was pretty surprised by the urine being sterile one. I'd always thought that it was actually sterile. Did you have any other myths that you'd like us to bust? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for getting us to 10,000 subscribers. You guys help us to be able to do what we do, and we'll see you on the way to 100,000.
Hi everyone, I'm Jade Lovell, resident science nerd on the Young Turks network. You're watching SciQ and we know you don't want to miss an episode, so please click the subscribe button down below.
So every election year since 2008, there's a campaign in the science community called Sci Debate, where everyone in science begs the candidates to please have a debate about all the issues that have to do with science. You know, just small issues like climate change, medical research, vaccines, NASA, GMOs, gun violence. Anyway, after almost a year of campaigning by the entire science profession, including a petition we asked you all to sign, it seems that we're not going to get the science debate we wanted. But that doesn't mean the candidates haven't commented on the science issues on the public record. So we've researched all their public statements and we bring you Hillary versus Trump on the big science issues. Trump hates Obamacare and says he will replace it, but he just hasn't said anything about how he will do it. There's no plans or anything. One thing to note is that most medical research funding is tied to Obamacare. So what medical research gets cut as part of this scrap Obamacare plan is anyone's guess. Trump has also sent some mixed messages when it comes to medical science. He's talked and tweeted many times about the now disproven link between vaccines and autism. If I were president, I would push for proper vaccinations, but would not allow one-time massive shots that a small child cannot take. Autism. He tweeted back in March 2014. And during the height of the Ebola crisis in 2014, he directly went against the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization, the governing health authorities, when he went on a Twitter rant and said we should stop flights from affected countries. He warned that the plague will start and spread inside our borders. But Trump, however, is very supportive of his own Trump brand of medical research. Yes, he once owned a vitamin network, a network marketing company that sold vitamin supplements. The company got people to submit their urine for tests, and then the tests would be run to demonstrate what supplements they were lacking, and then Trump Vitamins would send a special supplement mix back to the people to get amazing health. Investigations found that Trump's network had never tested whether the theory worked, and their products weren't submitted to the FDA. Hillary wants to stick with Obamacare and has laid out a specific 5- and 10-point plan to boost Alzheimer's, autism, HIV, and AIDS research. In terms of vaccines, Hillary is with the scientific consensus, saying the earth is round, the sky is blue, and vaccines work. Love your poetry there, Hillary. Oh, and she hasn't launched any vitamin companies yet. Climate change. Trump does not believe that humans play a major role in climate change and has called global warming a hoax. Clinton supports the science on climate change, though we may squabble with her individual policy positions. Energy. While some of Trump's views on energy are pretty inconsistent, he said he doesn't like oil reliance, but then he supports fossil fuels? He does believe that both natural gas and nuclear power should be a part of America's energy equation. Great. The Democratic Party's track record on sustainable energy is, I guess, not great. They've given billions of dollars in kickbacks to oil and gas companies. Clinton herself appears modestly in favor of fracking, like pumping chemicals into the ground to get the gas. And the Democratic Party also supports exporting more gas, which means more fracking. NASA and space. Trump's never said what he would do in regards to NASA, but he did say that he'd like a private space program, maybe even better than a public space program, which either means he wants to pull public funding from NASA or give Richard Branson a run for his money. Hillary Clinton is pretty supportive of the space program, and she's outlined leadership in space science as part of her plan to raise American incomes. She thinks that space exploration could be the next big win for the American economy. GMOs. Trump hasn't said a whole lot about GMOs, surprisingly, but what he has tweeted is a little disconcerting. When Ben Carson took a lead in the Iowa polls, Trump tweeted, hashtag Ben Carson is now leading the hashtag polls in hashtag Iowa. Too much hashtag Monsanto in the hashtag corn creates issues in the brain? Well, what the hell does he mean? Given that Monsanto is one of the biggest manufacturers of genetically modified foods, he's implying that GMOs cause brain damage, which is of course not supported by research or even basic biology. Hillary Clinton has expressed support for genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. You go, girl! She said that there's a big gap between what the facts are and what perceptions are. So it sounds like she understands GMO science at least a little bit, but she has been supportive of letting states force GMO labels onto food, which just goes to show, just because she understands the issue doesn't mean she's going to make evidence-based policy if elected. Now, this is not a comprehensive list. If we were to do a comprehensive list, this video would go on forever. And as always, we encourage you to do your own research. But we've provided all the source links in the description below. What do you guys think? Who's your favorite candidate on science issues? And are there any electoral science issues that concern you that we haven't mentioned here? It is election season after all, and we'd love to cover them. Let us know in the comments below.
Hi everyone, I'm Jade Lovell, resident science nerd on the Young Turks network. You're watching SciQ, and we know you don't want to miss an episode, so please click the subscribe button down below.
The world is a scary place. There's bad guys everywhere, and owning a gun is the only solution. At least that's what the NRA tell you. It's like their main defense against gun regulation. When a mass shooting happens, they're like, well, if all the 5-year-olds had guns, someone would have shot the shooter instead of being slaughtered. We need more guns, not less. Our potential new vice president, Donald Trump's running mate, Mike Pence, is a huge believer that guns make us safer. He actually said it in a speech to the Indiana Congress. He said, firearms in the hands of law-abiding citizens make our communities more safe and not less. And average Americans believe that guns make you safer. A 2014 Gallup poll showed that around 2/3 of Americans think having a gun in the house makes it a safer place to be. But could it be that more guns does make us safer? So it turns out our confidence in guns is woefully misguided. The evidence overwhelmingly shows that guns leave everybody less safe, including their owners. And this is not my opinion. These are the facts. And if you're a gun fan, I want you to watch the end of this video and then ask yourself if you still believe that guns make you safer. The question of, do guns make a nation safer, has been tested multiple times. One study published in the highly reputable American Journal of Medicine looked at 27 developed countries to see if there was a relationship between guns and safety. They found no correlation between guns per capita per country and the crime rate, meaning that if you add more guns to the population, you don't do much to affect the amount of crime. But what they found was a significant positive correlation between the number of guns in the population and firearm-related deaths. Basically, the more guns, the more people who die of gun injuries. That same American Journal of Medicine study also found that gun ownership was a strong predictor of gun death. Basically, if you own a gun, you're more likely to be killed by a gun. A 1993 study published in none other than the New England Journal of Medicine found that just the presence of a firearm in the house makes it 3 times more likely that someone will be murdered by an intimate partner or a family member, usually during arguments. Basically, if you have a gun in the home, you're way more likely to be murdered or to murder someone else or to kill yourself. And by the way, this study was repeated in 2003 and it came to the same conclusion. Regardless of your storage practices for the gun or the type of gun you have, just having any gun in the home means an increased risk of firearm homicide and firearm suicide. This was again supported by a study from Boston University's School of Public Health, which found that every time you increase the number of gun owners in a population by 1%, you see a 1.1% increase in gun murders and a 0.7% increase in total murders. Not a single published study in a single reputable journal has refuted these statistics, not one. But I know you trolls are going to tell me I'm wrong, so I dare you, I f***ing dare you, to link to any study that proves me wrong, and I will enjoy tearing it to absolute shreds. And in particular, I dare you to link to this study published in the conservative, student-edited Harvard Journal of Law and Public Policy, and it was written by 2 gun-toting nutjobs. I f***ing dare you. We all like to think that we should be able to defend ourselves, just in case that burglar really did break into our home. But the truth is that legal, defensive gun use is extremely rare. So why is this myth that guns make us safer still allowed to exist when there's overwhelming evidence against it? What do you guys think? I know you're gonna let me know, so go nuts in the comments below.
Hi everyone, I'm Jade Lovell, resident science nerd on the Young Turks network. You're watching SciQ and we know you don't want to miss an episode, so please click the subscribe button down below.
Guess what? Girls are experiencing puberty earlier. I know, right? Okay, so here's a quick timeline. In 1860, around when my grandmother's grandmother, Margaret Ross, was born, what a babe, girls hit puberty at around 16 years old. By the time my grandmother, Nana Heather, was born, that age had dropped to 14 years old. And when my mummy, Mama Sheens, was born, that average age had dropped to around 10 years old. And today, if I'd had a baby, baby Jade would have hit puberty at around 9 years old, which would have been considered freakishly early, even 100 years ago when my great-great-grandmother Margaret was alive. Now I know what you're gonna say.
Duh, we already know this. It's because they're eating chicken, which has hormones in it.
And to this I say, no, we don't put hormones in chicken in the US. It's not legal. We explain this in another video.
So if it's not hormones, then why?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So why are kids, specifically girls, hitting puberty super duper early? Well, this is the problem. Science doesn't really have any idea why it's happening.
Why doesn't science have any idea? Isn't that the whole point of science?
Beck, shut up with the questions. I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, so the reason science doesn't have any idea why this is happening is because it's a really tricky problem. We can't just take two babies and raise one in the 1860s and one in the modern times. You just couldn't simulate an 1860s environment. And even if you could, or if you had a time machine, the ethics committee has to approve all scientific studies and they'd never agree to it because, like, they didn't even have antibiotics back in the 1860s.
Ouch.
And they didn't have much hygiene either, really.
Ew.
And plus, even if it was ethical to make them travel back in a time machine and deny them basic health and hygiene, you couldn't lock a kid up for 16 years to run experiments on them. That would be unethical. So because science can't do a proper controlled study on this stuff, we can only try and look at correlations. Like, for example, obesity. See, there's more fat kids than ever before, and puberty is happening earlier than ever before. So maybe having more fat on our bodies at an earlier age might have something to do with it. That's what scientists at the Virginia School of Medicine suggested in 2010. Or maybe it's all the stresses of the modern education system. That's what scientists at the University of Texas discussed in 2007. Or maybe it's all the chemicals we have in our environment now, like BPA, which is a chemical that can mimic estrogen and is found everywhere in plastics, paper, canned food, receipts, all that sort of stuff. That's what scientists in Turkey suggested in 2011.
Okay, so we don't know why girls are hitting puberty early, but so what? I mean, does it really even matter?
Well, here's the problem. This change, hitting puberty 7 years earlier than normal, might be no big deal, but it might also be a sign of something absolutely catastrophic. We don't know what's causing this change. It could be that there's some chemical in our environment that's slowly up our whole reproductive cycle, leading to widespread infertility and will ultimately kill us all. Or it could be no big deal. We just don't know.
I mean, early puberty is kind of weird, but it's hardly gonna be like apocalyptic, right?
Well, probably not. But early puberty just sucks for the kids dealing with it. Think of it, half of all 9-year-old girls are now growing boobs and some are starting to have their periods. That's just super duper early for their body to be changing compared to how mature their mind is. It's really young for girls to be dealing